It's Friday night. I get to talk football. What else would you rather do? Oh, man. So those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Daniel Andrews. I have a YouTube channel, Dan Talks Football. On the live stream, all questions are answered and anything goes. You're in for a treat because today I'm going to break down the AFC before the June 1st free agent period. I'm going to give you at the end of the live stream, I'm actually going to break down the AFC and kind of how I see the AFC playing out for the 2024 season. Now, I didn't break down the playoff matchups, but I did break down who my AFC Super Bowl team is. I'm going to give you how all four divisions are going to play out, at least in my opinion. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand upon a previous live stream where I just go after the season ends. I simply just go through the teams. I just do a plus minus, and I kind of adapt that throughout the free agency period, then the draft. And before the June 1st free agency period, I'm just going to kind of give you a synopsis of what I'm seeing. But again, just because I'm doing the 16 AFC teams does not mean that I will not answer your questions. All questions will be answered and anything goes. I have coffee. I have water. I really, really, really don't need it. I'm really jacked up today. I'm really jacked up. I'm very excited to do this. And I'm very excited to give you an idea of how I see the AFC kind of planning out so far. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to show you something I made from a previous live stream. And this is just an AFC East preview. This is exactly what they did last year. If you tuned into the show, you've seen this before. After the 4th of July, I don't have a set in stone time. I'm going to go into a very detailed video breaking down all 32 teams. I'm going to make 8 divisional videos. I'm going to go over everything in extreme detail. However, this is more just a screenshot. And if you remember, this is what I put down. And I'm going to start off here with the Buffalo Bills. Now, remember the Bills, I really think that 11-6, originally they lost a lot of players, but I still think 11's a push. Getting to the divisional round is definitely a possibility for this team. And this is kind of my pre-first synopsis here. Best case scenario, Bills win the Super Bowl. And by the way, I could make 16 best case scenarios about the Bills winning the Super Bowl, but I think the Buffalo Bills are a team that realistically has a chance to win the Super Bowl. I didn't put it on here, but I really like what the Bills did in the draft. I really like what they did in the draft. This is a team that got much younger, potentially much faster, even though Keon Coleman, the 33rd pick in the draft, ran to 4.65 at the combine, even though he's not a speed demon. I felt on defense and on offense, this team got younger. Of course, a lot of veterans were let go. This could be a good thing. I've seen this happen before where teams get rid of a lot of older veterans, and most people think that, oh, this team's going to get worse. However, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you get younger, sometimes you get better. The Bills defense, if you're not aware, last year was just riddled with injuries, all sorts of defenses, all sorts of injuries all over the defense. Multiple starters went down during the year, and really, really good players. Tre'Davious White was a defensive MVP candidate, or he won defensive MVP a couple years back. He missed almost the whole season. I think both linebackers went down. They had all sorts of problems on the defensive line. I hate saying this, but I said it at the time, and it looks to be correct, is that the Von Miller contract was not a good idea. He's not the same guy. He's going to be probably first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best outside linebackers to ever play. One of my all-time favorite players, despite being a Denver Bronco. Buffalo really made a mistake giving him all that money. And it's just an issue. I don't think he had a sack last year. But overall, that defense finished 4th in points allowed. And that's with all those injuries. So they got some young players coming in. This is a team that, even though they lost a lot of veterans, could possibly be better. It's a lot of people think like, hey, they lost all this veteran leadership, they got to be worse. That's not necessarily true. Perry, what's up, brother? He says if the Bills young step up, I can see it. I still think that I still think they are a good draft or two. A draft or two away. Here's my bottom line, Perry. They were 4th in points allowed last year. The defense was really good. They lost so many players. I don't think the defense is going to be as good. I also I'm an old school guy. I don't think your quarterback, I drafted 2 away. And I'm kind of seeing the same thing, Perry. I really think that this year is going to be kind of a transitional year. But yeah, I think they're a year or 2 away. The problem is with the Bills is that if you have Josh Allen as your second leading rusher, which he was last year, which he'll probably be again this year, you risk him getting injured. I rewatched that Chiefs-Bills playoff game, and there's a throw that and by the way, this is true for every NFL game. Every NFL game, you take 5 plays away, it changes either way. I mean, it really is. The NFL is really just a few plays, but there's one throw late in the game. He makes that throw. The Bills go up 31-27. Now, as a Chiefs fan, I'm going to tell you, Patrick Mahomes comes back and scores a winning touchdown. But instead, they put the pressure on a rookie kicker. The kick just goes wide right, and the Bills lose the game. The Bills defense, all they have to do, though, to get the ball back is stop the Chiefs from getting the first down. Chiefs were able to go ahead and just run the ball right down the Bills' throat. So this schedule at week 11 gets really, really brutal. The Bills' schedule does get tough. I firmly believe McDermott has to make the playoffs. So this is a 9-8 team or a 10-7 team, and they don't make the playoffs. By the way, 10 wins may not be able to get you into the playoffs. 10 wins might not be enough. If the Bills go 10-7, remember they were 11-6 last year. They go 10-7, they don't make the playoffs, McDermott will be fired. I think the Bills look at themselves as a Super Bowl contender. I do not. I fully expect the Bills to make the playoffs. Spoiler alert. But I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. If the Bills don't make the playoffs, McDermott needs to be gone. I feel like he's not the right guy to get them to the Super Bowl. I agree, Perry. I really do. I think that a couple of years ago when they played maybe the greatest playoff game of all time against Kansas City, Josh Allen had maybe the best playoff game of his career. Of course, that game he had against Pittsburgh in the wild card round was phenomenal. That was probably their best team against Kansas City in that epic overtime wild card game. Maybe the best playoff game of all time. It's not. I'm just exaggerating, but if you said top 10 playoff games of all time, does that game make the list? It should. It should. It has a name, the 13-second game. I do like what they've done, though, this offseason is by getting younger. And if McDermott can get this youth on the right page, but I really think that what you need is I would like to see the Bills do just the opposite of what McDermott is an older defensive minded coach. I think what you need is an offensive minded coach and a new approach, an approach where Josh Allen isn't running the ball all the time and he's more of a passer. James Cook played amazing last year. If you take a look here, depending on what if you're watching on your phone, you probably won't be able to read this, but if you're watching on a computer or TV, you can see James Cook had 1,567 total yards. And coming out of Georgia, he was about 195 pounds. Hopefully he put on what I like to call the NFL 20. And he can handle a bigger workload. And I really think that what they should have done is get another running back that maybe a short yardage guy to take more pressure off Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is really running back number 2 on this team. And that's a problem because Josh Allen could be an MVP. And having him run, by the way, watch that wild card game against Pittsburgh. Having him run in the playoffs is completely different than having him run during the regular season. He shouldn't be running as much during the regular season. All that punishment. By the way, he'll never say this, but watch that game 2 years ago against the Bengals. Him and Diggs kind of got into it a little bit. I'm firmly convinced Allen was just too beat up. Watch some of those throws he makes, and you can tell like there's something wrong with Josh Allen. It's all that punishment. That's what it is. So yeah, he's a good head coach, but not great. The Bills are wasting Allen. I agree completely, and I really think that they should go with a different offensive minded coach. Kind of change the philosophy around with the team. It's funny, Keys, who's been on the show several times, he thinks that the head coach should be Bill Belichick. I think that would be a lot of fun. I also don't think it would happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if the trend is getting young offensive-minded coaches as head coaches. That's kind of been the trend. And if this team doesn't make the playoffs, I think you're going to see an offensive mind come into Buffalo as the new head coach. McDermott is completely on the hot seat, and this is a team that expects to go to a Super Bowl. This is a team that expects to go to a Super Bowl, and I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. I really don't. Perry says Allen needs to show he's a true superstar quarterback that can put the team on his back. I don't see him like that. He does, and I don't think he's that either. I think that when you remember when he first 2 years in the league, he was a below average quarterback. His first 2 years in the league, he was a below average quarterback. Brian Dable really helped turn him around, but part of that was Diggs. I really think that what the Bills should do is run more of that old school Don Coryell vertical passing offense where you can throw the ball deep. Okay. You have an explosive young running back. And then what you want to do is take advantage of that great defense. But the less Allen runs, the better. Now in the playoffs, have him run the ball. But what young offensive coordinator would go there? I think that there's a lot of offense. I think Buffalo would actually be pretty appealing. From what I understand, there's plans to build a new stadium. I think it's in 2026, maybe 2028. Somebody told me that in the chat. Matter of fact, your guy, Ben Johnson, he turned down a few opportunities, and there's different reasons behind that. First name freeze 15 minutes into the show. Cliff Kingsbury, who's going to be the offensive coordinator in Washington. He's going to be a hot name if Jaden Daniels plays mediocre. That's a guy I would love to see. Remember, he did a lot of wonders with Kyler Murray, and that would be a name that I would throw out there. I know a lot of people have bad things to say, and Chiefs fans included, but Matt Nagy would be an interesting candidate, another Andy Reid disciple. Of course, what he did in Chicago, you guys would have to tell me that are in the NFC North, but there are some good young coaches, and there may even be a dark horse candidate. The offensive coordinator out of Tampa Bay, Dave Canales, who took over as head coach at Tampa Bay, he came out of nowhere, and there's going to be a candidate like that could come out of nowhere. The offensive coordinator who's in Buffalo right now, I want to say it's Tim Allen, but I could be wrong on the name. Remember, he took over for Ken Dorsey, who's now in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski, that's another name that would be interesting. And you may say Danny is one coach of the year with Cleveland. Well, you never know what Cleveland's going to do. Never know what Cleveland's going to do. You could also poach a coach from college. I personally think if McDermott is fired, I think Buffalo would be one of the premier places to go. And even though I'm drawing a blank, the offensive coordinator for Miami, now keep in mind, everybody thinks it's a Mike McDaniel offense. He's not alone. That offensive coordinator may say, I'm sick of McDaniel getting all the credit. Send me to Buffalo. I think Buffalo, a matter of fact, that's one thing I didn't do. But there's a few coaches I think that are going to be fired, and I didn't make that prediction. But I did make predictions on which coaches are on the hot seat. McDermott is one of them, man. So I got behind on the comments thanks to the rant here. Dakota 18, what's up, brother? Hello, Dan. You are fine. I hope so. I think Josh Allen doesn't have a true wide receiver number one, a true offensive head coaches. No, They're investing heavy on Keon Coleman. I didn't get a chance to watch all of NFL football on ESPN. Normally I do before I come on. I didn't have a chance to watch all of it. They're very high on Keon Coleman. Matt Collins is a guy I loved with the Raiders. He didn't do much in Atlanta last year, but keep in mind they got rid of their whole coaching staff this offseason. So Matt Collins is a guy. What they did is they brought in a bunch of receivers. All of them have the same kind of skill set, except for one of them, who they're all big physical dudes, and they're all guys that can win those contested balls. And I keep in mind, Allen threw 18 interceptions last year, so I think that what you're going to see offensively is kind of the same thing. But no, he doesn't have a true number one. Actually, his number one wide receiver is going to be Dalton Kincaid, who plays tight end. It wouldn't surprise me he goes over 100 receptions this year. He'll be the number one receiver. They're going to hype up Keon Coleman. We'll see what he can do. But really, I really think the Bills, keep in mind, James Cook coming out of college was only 195. The 1567 total yards, he only had 2 rushing touchdowns. So is he really ready to take it? Like, I don't want James Cook getting 400 touches. But I want him increasing the workload that he had last year. I think it was total like 255, something like that. Dable did get the best out of him. And even though I'm doing the NFC next week, out of all the coaches in the NFL, I think Brian Dable is the number one on the hot seat. And you're in the division with the Cowboys. You're in the division with the Eagles. Washington made massive changes this offseason. Can you go 8-9, keep your job? Probably not. You probably got to get to the playoffs. And, from what I'm hearing, Daniel Jones is coming back and progressing nicely, but I don't think he's 100%. And I was never sold on him anyway. Dable, if he gets fired by the Giants, I think will be considered as the head coach of the Bills if they move on from McDermott. Hatters out 710. What's up, brother? He goes, Lions are winning it all. I'm doing the NFC next week, so you stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll give you my Super Bowl at the end of this live stream. I'm going to go over my AFC predictions, but I think if you're been tuning in and listening to me, kind of have an idea of who I like in AFC already. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Perry has Brian Thomas Jr. is the best wide receiver in the draft, the number one receiver in the draft. And he's a guy that's got a world of potential. And I didn't even bring him up in this video, which I should have. The Bills should have traded up for Brian Thomas Jr. when he was falling. Allen to Thomas Jr. would have been crazy good. They remember they traded with Carolina. Carolina wanted Leggett, and I think Keon Coleman was kind of the guy that they're building on. But it's kind of funny because you look at like Matt Collins, a big physical guy, Keon Coleman, a big physical guy, Brian Thomas, a big physical guy. Why wouldn't you go with him? And the difference is between Brian Thomas Jr. Remember, he was picked 23rd by Jacksonville. And by the way, I didn't even bring that up with Jacksonville, but yeah. But what Buffalo wanted to do, and I do like what they did, is that they really kind of replenished the roster in the draft. Cedric Van Pran, the 5th round pick out of Georgia. He's going to be a day one starter on that offensive line. You watch Osiris Torrance. I just fell in love with this guy out of University of Florida. Speaking of University of Florida, Denver Gator says, all right. Denver Gator, man, I'm so glad to see you, brother. Denver Gator is joining me this fall. We're going to talk some college football. I'm really excited about that. So he is. Steph Nansky's on the hot seat. I haven't gotten past Buffalo yet, but we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Everyone relax, just chill. I'm here for you. Denver Gator is correct. Hey, Hatterhouse DG, how you doing tonight? Perry showing some love here. Coleman's a player who is a comparison for him. Yeah. And by the way, I mean, you guys remember a player by the name of N'Keal Harry came out of Arizona State. I joked around that when Herm Edwards went there, it would hurt his draft stock, and there was talk about him being a top 5 player. The Patriots drafted him at 22. Very similar type player. I don't even know if he's in the NFL anymore, but he's like on 3 different teams, never really materialized. And that's kind of the comp that I placed with Keon Coleman, unfortunately. But I love N'Keal Harry coming out of the draft. He ran a 4.55, and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. He runs good routes, has good separation. Well, that's what we're saying about Keon Coleman. And that's like the floor for him is N'Keal Harry, who I think's been with 3 different teams, maybe not even in the NFL anymore. Plus side, I don't know. I don't know of a really good comparison for him. I mean, his highlight reel is phenomenal, but we'll see. I agree completely. Perry just spitting fire here. I think the Bills need to bring in a veteran running back, same with the Cowboys. Yeah, I really thought that Kareem Hunt, who's still available, I think that would be a great fit because you have a guy. They're going to lie about his weight. They're probably going to list him at 220. He's probably closer to 205. And I just don't see James Cook really being that guy who gets that 25 touches a game. They really should have got in a Robin to be his Batman, and Kareem Hunt I think would be a great addition. But I would like for them to get a bigger running back kind of go along with that. Yeah, and I love Dalton Kincaid too. I think he's gonna have a huge season. And I'm actually going to do a college football show, and hopefully Denver Gator, I can talk Denver Gator into coming on and doing like a college football show with me before the season starts. Kincaid got to break out this year. If he does, yeah, I agree completely, Perry. I agree completely. Kincaid has to have a massive year. Harry did bust. Yeah. First round pick out of the Patriots. Of course, all first round receivers for Patriots have drafted have all been busts, but I really thought N'Keal Harry was going to be the exception. He was the punt returner at Arizona State, even though he's like 6'4", 215. He ran a 4.55 at the combine. And I was like, it's really not going to matter because he runs good routes. He's big enough to win, and it didn't. It didn't. It turns out to be that the lack of separation was a big deal in the NFL. He wasn't able to overcome that. Can Keon Coleman do that? And that's going to be a big question. I think still has something left in the tank. I agree completely. I'm really surprised he hasn't signed with Dallas or maybe even Buffalo already, but Dallas in particular, which really needs another guy besides Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm gonna go over that next week. Miami Dolphins, I had them as 11 wins as a push, but now, by the way, the Miami's Dolphins are just hold on. The Keon Coleman comp to Sutton? Is that something you're asking, or is that something somebody said? Because I don't see that at all, to be honest with you. I see Sutton as somebody with significant more speed and explosiveness. This is kind of a weird thing, but I normally don't watch a lot of TV other than I have to watch TV to sleep at night. I can't sleep in silence. I don't follow a lot of shows on a regular basis, but one show I do like is Bar Rescue. Cortland Sutton came on Bar Rescue, and he brought in Bradley Chubb and another member of the Denver Broncos that they were trying to rescue a sports bar in Denver. And I was really surprised at how well-spoken and intelligent Sutton sounded on the show. I mean, this was a guy, and he mentioned something about him wanting to own a restaurant. Smart, by the way. I was a big Cortland Sutton fan coming out of SMU. I don't see. I mean, they're both big players, so I get that part. But Sutton is a guy that is a guy that can run by you. Coleman's not running by any NFL defensive back. And by the way, the 4.65 you see on the tape. I mean, he's got run after the catch ability, which I like. Tough guy to bring down, has some jumping ability and all that. But if you're not outrunning college defensive backs in the ACC, which I know the ACC is a Power 5 conference, but let's be clear, like. You're not getting the level of play that you're playing in the upper tier of the Big Ten or in the SEC. So bad defense, bad quarterback. Are you talking about the Dolphins? Wow. I was thinking more of a body type and production. I'm going to be way off in my comp. Okay. They're both big, tall dudes. Keon Coleman, even though I think both of them about 210. Keon Coleman's more of a bigger, more physical guy, or Sutton's a guy is much more angular, more of a speed guy. I wouldn't compare the two. The biggest Keon Coleman comp I can think of is N'Keal Harry, who was a bust, and I don't like doing that with a rookie. Like, you're going to be a bust, but I see a lot of N'Keal Harry, and it just broke my heart because N'Keal Harry is one of my favorite players. I had a major draft crush on him, and he just didn't pan out. But you're right that they're both 6'3". I think I want to say Sutton's 6'4", both about 210. But Sutton's a dude that can just run right by you. So can Coleman play in a slot? So the Bills want him to play all over, and the plan is to have both Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid play inside outside. And this is where the Bills got to get really creative here, because I really believe that if you just use Dalton Kincaid as a slot receiver, as your tight end, and you don't use him on the outside, and you put Keon Coleman directly on the outside, and you put Dalton Kincaid only in the slot, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. I really believe that the Bills think that he can play inside outside. I think he can, because the one thing I do like is forget the 4.65. Watch him run routes. I think that was part of the problem with N'Keal Harry. Now, part of it was injuries, but N'Keal Harry was your stereotypical X outside receiver. Coleman, I think, has a little more route running ability. I think we're going to find out. He has to if he wants to be successful. He has to if he wants to be successful. And by the way, they need to move Dalton Kincaid everywhere. And we're going to see how creative this Bills offense can be, because if you're just that was part of the reason why Ken Dorsey got fired and is now in Cleveland. So I like Mac Hollins quite a bit. He had his last year with the Raiders was rather successful, and then he went to Atlanta and did almost nothing there. I don't think it was an injury issue, but if you look at Mac Hollins, he also really, I remember his final year with the Raiders, really hit the weight room, put on the legitimate NFL 20, because he was kind of the thinner guy who just said, okay, I'm going to be a bigger dude. Made a lot of tough contested catches. I thought it was a mistake of the Raiders to let him go, but it was a cap issue, and maybe there's some issues in the locker room, but he was a complete dud in Atlanta. They have a 5th round pick, Shakur, something like that. If I remember right, he's out Boise State. He was a guy that they were really raving about. They also added a couple other players, but Dalton Kincaid absolutely has to be the guy. I really think he's got to be option number 1. And Keon Coleman doesn't have to be the guy if somebody like Mac Hollins can come in. The kid out of Boise State, it's Shakir, something like that. He also doesn't have to be the guy, but I think he has to be maybe a solid 3 or 4. I believe the Dolphins' winning window has closed, lost too many players in the offseason. I'm going to level with you, Denver Gator. You're right. Because that offense could be a lot of fun, okay? That offense could be a lot of fun. And by the way, I put here $300 million in this contract, and $300 million is completely possible. There was talk that Tua was going to take a team-friendly contract. Now the talks are he wants over $50 million. It's hard to say. Perry asked, did Dalton Kincaid do anything last season? Did he show flashes? He absolutely showed flashes. He had, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, he had about 70 catches, but it was like 600 and some yards, so it was less than 10 yards a reception. They also have another tight end in Buffalo who was pretty good. Dawson Knox, solid dude. Solid good, can be a starter in the league, but he's never going to be elite. Dalton Kincaid, at the end of the season, they used him more and more and more. I don't think they really untapped that potential yet. And that's one of the reasons why I really believe that Buffalo needs an offensive-minded coach to come in and take over, because I see some offensive weapons there. And by the way, Dable and McDermott, for whatever reason, they hate each other. And it's I always think it's sad. You got two guys that, put in all this time together for 4 years. If you're not aware, NFL coaches work, 12 to 15 hours a day, during the off season and regular season. So it's a strain when you have two guys that just don't like each other. And there's a lot of coaching staffs that are like that, where, most famously, I just watched the 93 Oilers, like Buddy Ryan, he didn't get along with a lot of his coaches. It's really hard. Some ownerships don't care. Some ownerships like, you don't like each other. I don't care. One thing that has been really good about my Chiefs is universally everybody loves Andy Reid except for Le'Veon Bell for some weird reason. But yeah, a lot of you guys really see the same thing that I'm seeing. And forget Tua, it's so bad. He only had one season where he was completely healthy. That was last year. I forget who it was. It may have been Denver Gator. And Denver Gator, if you didn't say this, somebody brought into the chat that if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I would draft Michael Penix Jr. I still don't get how he got to be the 8th pick by the Falcons, but Michael Penix might even improve that offense. But I don't think he's terrible. If I had a daughter, I would want her to date Tua, but I don't have any kids. It's funny, I was just having a conversation with a little girl. I don't have any kids anyway. The neighbor kid, just for you weirdos. But yeah, Tua, $300 million is not out of the question. It really isn't. And by the way, if you sign him to that big deal and he gets hurt, you're screwed. You are screwed. There's some talk that the defensive players love Anthony Weaver, but he's a first-time defensive coordinator. Now, he was in Baltimore for a long time. But he's first-time defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive minds in all football. And then you lose Wilkins, like Xavier Howard, Andrew Van Ginkel. There's somebody else I'm drawing a blank on. And it kind of looks like what they're doing on defense I'm not, by the way, if you're a Colts fan or a Peyton Manning fan, don't take exception to this, but this is kind of the way I look at the Miami Dolphins is remember how the Colts were built under Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning, where they were just scoring 30 a game, and they had a smaller, lighter defense that you could run against, you could score against, but they could produce turnovers and they could get after the quarterback. It kind of looks like that's what the Miami Dolphins are trying to do with Chop Robinson. Remember, just untapped potential, but he's 250, runs a 4.4. Jalen Phillips, who got hurt last year, I love this kid in untapped potential. Bradley Chubb, everybody agrees he would look much better in a Chiefs uniform than a Broncos uniform, but they remember the Dolphins gave a first-round pick for him. Now he's 30, and it looks like they're kind of looking to move on from him. Vic Fangio loved Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb was one of my major draft crushes coming out of NC State. Loved Bradley Chubb. He's also a guy that can be a 4-3 defensive end, 3-4 outside linebacker. Bradley Chubb's one of my favorite players, but coming off an injury, he is 30. He's making a lot of money. You draft his replacement in the first round, it looks like. But what I think will happen is you're going to just try to have multiple defensive ends and say, hey, we're not going to worry about that stud defensive tackle. I think that's a massive mistake. So Wilkins, and I talked about this too, so running back and linebacker depth and special teams can build after. Yeah, exactly. But damn, Denver Gators on fire. And this is why this is my pre-June free agency video, and this is not the final tally, just kind of how I see things going so far. Denver Gators on fire. I need to get that sound bite for those of you old enough to remember that old NBA Jam. I agree with you, man. Perry says too it's not worth $50 million. I agree. I completely agree. That's what his camp wants. And they played hardball with him. They're like, hey, you got to prove it. Well, he led the league in passing. Yeah, he froze in Kansas City, but I don't blame him for that. I do blame him for not beating Buffalo at home the last game of the season. That you got to do better. What was the score? 2017? Second highest scoring offense in the NFL. You put 70 up against Denver. Sorry, Denver Gator. At Denver Gator was your takeaway. A Denver Gator, yes. Great question, Denver Gator. I actually really want to know this myself. So, do you believe Miami can go to the playoffs with the Bills and projected Jets to me other good AFC teams? At the end of the live stream, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you my whole AFC preview. So I'll show you at the end. I think if the Fins or the Bills fails this year, maybe both do. There's no reason Jets shouldn't be a contender if A-Rod is healthy. Going to the Jets next. Perry, everyone will mock my Broncos, but fans are really excited to have Bo Nix. A different kind of feeling this year. Hopefully, Peyton can develop Nix. So I'm going east to west. I'm doing Denver last. We may have a losing record, but I think we're starting to rebuild and be relevant again. I mean, kind of stole my thunder here. I'm going east to west, Denver Gator. But Denver Gator's right. Perry says, do you think Peyton should start Wilson at the start of the season so Denver fans can see Nix is the future or further? Actually, believe it or not, so ESPN has Zach Wilson as quarterback number 3. And here's the drill. Zach Wilson has to earn his spot on the team. And if I'm Zach Wilson, I'm just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I can because I know I'm gone next year. You got an opportunity for one of the best offensive minds in football, but I don't think Zach Wilson is really, or Russell Wilson for that matter, is really a fit in a Sean Payton type of offense. I do think Bo Nix is, but Zach Wilson's not even guaranteed to be the backup. Denver Gators just speaking for me here. Bo Nix is going to start day one. They're going to throw him right into the fire. He's going to have a game this year where he's going to throw like 3 or 4 picks, but he's going to be the guy. If Nix isn't ready, I'm going to let you. This is my opinion, and Denver Gator have to clarify this. I don't think they care if he's ready or not. I think they're just going to throw him in there and say, make mistakes. Just make mistakes. And I'm not a fan of that myself, but there's no point in playing Zach Wilson. I forget the other Denver quarterback that's in there, but on the ESPN depth chart, which is not, don't use that as your, I just kind of use it as a general guide, but, because I also have it, saved on my tabs, but I forget who it is. Is it Ben DiNucci? I forget who it is. How many teams have beaten the Chiefs in sub-zero weather? But yeah, it should be. Yeah, I mean, I said this when I did Stidham. That's right, Stidham, and Stidham will be the backup. Stidham has familiarity with that system, and he. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Jared Stidham. After his junior season at Auburn, a lot of people thought he was going to be a first-round pick, and then he lasted the 4th round, had a bad senior season. He had a few games with the Raiders where he looked pretty good. I've always been a guy that really thought Stidham was a guy that could develop into a starter. That's the guy who may get to start, not Zach Wilson, but Stidham's a guy with potential. But I really think they're just going to throw Nix into the fire. That's just my opinion. If Nix learns this year and Denver gets a high pick, it's a win. Absolutely. And that's what I think is going to happen is that Nix is going to start. Denver's going to struggle. But what you want to see from Nix is he better week 1 than week 17? Does he understand the concepts? Does he understand what he needs to do? Javonte Williams, I'm firmly convinced, was injured last year. I was talking to somebody who had Javonte Williams on his fantasy team last year, and he's like, yeah, he just wasn't that good. Yeah, I understand. I watched him as his rookie year, and last year he wasn't the same guy. One of the things about ACL surgeries and knee injuries is that you see guys that recover from ACL injuries in 4 to 6 months, and you think, well, everybody can do it. But that's not the case. I really think that if he stays healthy, Javonte Williams could have a massive, massive season. I'll get to that in a little bit here. Who's the next team on my list? It's the Denver Broncos here. I'm sorry. Nix replaced Stidham at Auburn. To be fair, Auburn was – yeah, he was. Yeah, Auburn was a disaster for a little bit, but yeah, I watched Stidham. His you remember Stidham's junior season at Auburn? I don't know if there was a coaching change or what happened, but there was talk about him being a first round pick, and his senior season he just didn't play well. I'm gonna level with you. I'm gonna go over to Jets here, and I'm gonna kind of just zip through this. And the reason why is Robert Saleh's had 3 straight losing seasons. He has to have a winning season, and he has to go to the playoffs this year, or he's done. Okay? He doesn't win this year, you're gone. This defense is as good as it gets. Breece Hall on about 20 to 25 other teams probably goes to the Pro Bowl because the Jets were playing against 15 in the box because they, everybody knew the Jets really weren't going to throw the ball. But everybody knew Breece Hall, you had to stop him. Breece Hall could be a dark horse MVP. And I know it sounds crazy with Aaron Rodgers, but I really think that if the Jets are smart, they just really lean on Breece Hall and then keep Rodgers healthy for the playoffs. I'm going to be very clear. The Jets are my favorite to win the Super Bowl. They really are. I would love it if Kansas City three-peated. Everybody wants my Chiefs to win a Super Bowl again and again. But I look at this defense. I look at Rodgers. I look at the offensive line. Yes, Stidham. I forgot who it was. But do you think Auburn used Nick's right? No, they actually didn't. It's kind of funny because I kept on hearing Tim Tebow comparisons, and they used him more as a runner because he's kind of built like Tebow. He was like 6'2", 6'3", 230. As a true freshman, he was like built like a linebacker, and they used him more as a runner. And that was part of the reason why he transferred to Oregon. He's like, I don't want to be the next Tim Tebow. I'm a passer. I got some passing ability. His freshman year at Auburn, it was like he had a 52 or 53% completion percentage. He was a guy I was like, well, you can't play quarterback on the next level. Then he went to Oregon, and his final season at Oregon, I think it was like 76, 77, 78. He led the college football in completion percentage. Because what they're doing up there in Oregon, by the way, like we'll talk about this more when I talk college football. Oregon's kind of building something up there. So, Gary, man, yes, I haven't seen you in a while, Dan. I know this is an AFC preview. Yeah, next week I'll go over in more detail, but you're correct. So I apologize, but I'm curious where you have Giants in finishing. I have them finishing 8-9, barely missing the playoffs. No, Gary, all questions answered, anything goes, and I'm very glad to hear from you. I have the Giants battling for third in that NFC East, and it's basically just how fast does Jaden Daniels progress? Because I really think that if Kingsbury can work with Daniels and get him up to speed fast, then Washington's a team I think that there's some things to look for. Philly's collapse bothers me, but on paper, or if you're playing Madden, Philly's maybe the best team in the NFC, and I can say the same thing about Dallas. I think the Giants fired Dable. And I think that this offseason is going to be a big question because, they got that contract with Daniel Jones. They have to figure out what to do there. But I think the plan will be, this kind of sucks, but take a look at what Denver did with Russell Wilson. I think you kind of have to do that. I think what's going to happen in 2025 is that the Giants are going to try and draft a quarterback to take over because Daniel Jones isn't the guy. All right, I apologize, everyone. I've been having this issue. What it is that Cox Communication, my internet provider is just awful. So I apologize. I've had this issue a couple of times, so I'm sorry about that. Let me know if my sound or anything's messed up. So Garrett Wilson may be a front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. He could be. He very well could be. I mean, him and Rodgers. I think the Jets would be in better shape if Breece Hall was Offensive Player of the Year, but Garrett Wilson easily could be. I mean, this guy played really, really well last year despite the musical quarterback situation. But yeah, you're 100% correct. Funk coming in here. I'm glad to see you, Funk. Perry, you kind of summed it up for me, man. By the way, they drafted one of my draft crushes, Braylon Allen, out of Wisconsin, 245-pound running back with speed. After dealing with Breece Hall, who's a solid 220, 230 himself, in the fourth quarter, because you can't stock the box against Aaron Rodgers. Now you got this monster out of Wisconsin. Don't be surprised Braylon Allen has like 400 yards rushing, but gets 10 to 12 touchdowns this year. So, yeah. Funk says he here for a minute. Hey, Funk, I'm very glad you stopped by, man. I know you like listening to the rebroadcast, so I do appreciate that, man. I'm always glad to see you in the chat, my brother. Some love here. Dallas is more of a brand. It's funny. I go to the gym and I can't hear it, but I see ESPN and they're interviewing Dak Prescott, and they're like, well, the Mavericks are doing this, the Dallas Stars are doing this, and then the Cowboys are doing this. Yeah, you're right. I think Kingsbury can be a good offensive coordinator with a running quarterback. He got the most. Yeah, I mean, seriously, what he does with Jaden Daniels will determine how much of a market he has with the head coaching, because look, every year there's going to be anywhere from, I'm going to say 3 to 8. I think this year was 8, but usually 4. As general rule of thumb, it's usually at least 4. I mean, the NFL, there's a lot of pressure, and I'm going to go into this in a little more detail, but I already mentioned McDermott, but there's a few other coaches that are on the hot seat as well. Kingsbury's a guy that if he can bring along Jaden Daniels to be kind of mediocre as a rookie, he's going to be a hot head coaching candidate. Dable got the hope he's get something out of Locke or Jones. Yeah, I mean, seriously, I've always loved Drew Locke, and I keep in mind we went to the same high school. It was terrible what they did in Denver with him. He's battling with Geno Smith in Seattle. Now, keep in mind, Geno Smith, the indications were coming out of camp that Geno Smith was winning the job over Drew Locke. Drew Locke in preseason got COVID, and he was gone for 3 weeks. So what do? Well, Geno Smith won the job. Remember, he was comeback player of the year. Okay. I'm almost curious if Drew Locke would have won that, didn't catch COVID, wins that job, would he have been better? I think he would have been. Look at the 3 receivers, by the way, Seattle has, even though I'm doing AFC this year. You have Jackson Smith and then Jake Buzz. Somebody criticized me for butchering his name. I practiced that so many times, so I don't think I did yet. DK Metcalf, no NFL receiver has a better size speed combination than DK Metcalf. And then you have Tyler Lockett. Did I get his name right? Because I remember his dad played for the Chiefs. Both of them went to K-State, but who's actually the best one of them, but he's getting up there in age. So, yeah. But anyhow, with Drew Locke or Daniel Jones is going to be the guy as long as he's healthy, unfortunately, because the Giants are paying him more. And the Giants are going to be one of these teams that, the paycheck's going to determine who should and shouldn't be the starter. A lot of times you don't want to hear this. You're not going to hear a coach or a GM admit it, but that's true. It's just true. One quarterback's making $40 million. I don't know what Drew Lock's contract is. So the one who's making $40 million is going to start, whether he's the best player or not. We'll see what happens. The defense could be great. Brian Burns, and by the way, there's no limit on how good Kayvon Thibodeau could be. Remember, he got hurt in preseason. There are some maturity questions with him, but the potential is unlimited. Now you got Ryan Burns, you have Dexter Lawrence, you have some youth in that secondary. Also, I think losing Wink Martindale is going to have an effect, but we'll see. I think the Giants after the season are going to clean house coaching wise, maybe general manager wise, and are going to look towards free agency. Dak Prescott, maybe. But anyway, yeah. Gary, it's always good to see you, brother. I'm glad you're here. Just side note about Nix. He played and started 61 games. You have to be good to start as a freshman, not be benched as a freshman. And by the way, he started as a true freshman at Auburn. Starting as a true freshman in the SEC is very, very difficult. Very difficult. And he earned it. He was very talented, but the way Auburn wanted to use him was very much like the way Tim Tebow was used at Florida. And they're both similar body types, but Nix wisely realized that, hey, I have a better chance if I go to Oregon. And he was right. He was 12th overall pick in the draft. Yes. I like Bo Nix a lot. If Jerry Jones would let the coaches coach Dallas, would probably make the Super Bowl. Jerry Jones ain't seen back. You're preaching to the choir, Perry. Preaching to the choir. And by the way, if he just would have given more credit to Jimmy Johnson, they would won at least one more Super Bowl. I think the number is one. They wouldn't have won in 94, but after the 95 Switzer Super Bowl, if Jimmy Johnson, he would have won it 95, and they would have won one more. I believe so. Perry's on fire. Do you think Dan Quinn can turn around Washington? I'll not call him by the dumb name they use now. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I like the Redskins. I've always liked it. It was really funny because I remember an interview and it was something crazy, like 97% of Native Americans didn't have a problem with the name, but it's that wild minority that gets the most noise. I'm going to rant a little bit because I just want to do it. The Harrison Butker thing's still going on. I'm still seeing it on TV. I'm seeing it on social media. People are calling him for him to be fired. But here's the drill. Even though you're hearing more about the people that want him to get fired, more and more people support him. Patrick Mahomes supported him publicly. Andy Reid supported him publicly. I'm going to tell you this for an absolute fact. So Corey, a.k.a. the Red Sea, he DM'd me. He's like, man, you got all sorts of problems with your Chiefs, man. You got Rashid Rice, by the way, the photographer, recanted his story. And then, so he's no issue there. The crash is a different issue, but the nightclub incident, that's been closed. And I think that what happened is one of these TMZ guys who I despise got in his face and probably instigated the whole thing. That speculating because he just dropped all charges. Maybe it's paid off. Who knows? But you hear something about the minority and not the majority. And I remember Sports Illustrated had something. It was something crazy. It was like, Perry just nails it. Just nonsense by weak people. That's exactly what it is. And I'm gonna stop ranting about Butker because the people asking him to be fired, they hate about Butker, uncalled for, and it's by weak fucking people. If the Lions moved on from Glenn, I wanted Wink. Actually, to tell you the truth, I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear from Denver Gator, and I would love it if you would comment on this as well, because Wink Martindale goes to Michigan, and a lot of times when you have success in the NFL, you can't do college But college is becoming a lot more like the NFL. I didn't want to touch base on that today, but the how they're setting everything up, you're gonna see teams are going to be built a lot more like NFL teams, and I'm kind of curious if because Eric Bieniemy, he's taken over at UCLA as the offensive coordinator. Deshaun Rosen, interesting choice, could be a potential stud hire for UCLA. I'm kind of curious how Wink Martindale is going to do at Michigan, because he's worked in the NFL for so long. A lot of times, guys that coach in the NFL for a long time, they don't have success in college. But I'm interested to see how that works with Michigan, because there's a lot of talent there. And if Wink Martindale can dumb down the system, and he will need to dumb it down. I mean, it was complex by NFL standards. If he can dumb it down, how good's Michigan going to be? Because even though Harbaugh left and some players left, and obviously a lot of players got drafted, there's a lot of talent there in Ann Arbor. I can't wait to kind of dive into that. Don't think Glenn is the right guy to be your DC. Well, you know what? He's a former defensive back, and you drafted a couple of defensive backs in the first round. If he doesn't get it done this year, he's not the right guy. But you got him the guys that he wanted. I'm assuming Aaron Glenn was really high on both Rickshaw and Arnold. If he wasn't, then that's an issue. But you're a former NFL defensive back. Remember, he's a first-round corner out of Texas A&M. For the little fun fact, the fake spike game, Marino to Ingram, that was against Aaron Glenn. They fooled Aaron Glenn. They knew he was a rookie. Little fun fact for you. You really think they fired Dable? The quarterback class, I like Jalen Monroe, Alabama, Malik Murphy at Duke. Who's your quarterback? Shadir Sanders, I think, is going number one. By the way, if you're not aware, he's throwing to a couple of future NFL wide receivers. Travis Henry, who's probably going to play corner in the NFL. He's playing both ways at Colorado. There's a good chance he goes number 2 in the draft if one of these quarterbacks isn't number 2. It kind of depends, because, like, let's say the Carolina Panthers have a bad season and they're not going to draft a quarterback, but would the Carolina Panthers take Travis Henry at 1 or 2? Not at 1, but let's just say they're picking 2 or 3. Would they take Travis Henry over quarterback? Absolutely, they would. Shadir Sanders is going to put up monster numbers this year. A lot of you may not. Some of you may remember Joe Horn. He was with Kansas City. Then he went to the Saints, exploded with Saints. His son, same type of player, going to be a first-round pick. I think he's a freshman, maybe a sophomore there at Colorado. He's going to be a future first-round pick. He's there. Travis Henry, they got another guy who's going to be an NFL wide receiver there in Colorado. The biggest problem with Colorado is Dion didn't recruit well enough on the offensive and defensive lines, but the receivers and defensive backs are all NFL caliber. So, yes, Shadir Sanders, they fix up that offensive line. He probably goes over 5,000. Shadir Sanders is going. I got him going number 1. Jalen Monroe really progressed nicely as the season went on. Remember, he was benched. I like his size. I think he's got a good arm. Kind of curious to see what happens here. New coaching staff's going to be kind of interesting there in Alabama. Denver Gators are going to get mad. The Georgia quarterback. I'm drawing a complete blank on his name. I think it's a Jackson Dart. Is that correct? Or he's the USC backup. I watched him in Holiday Bowl. He's going to be a Heisman candidate. He's a guy who's got some potential as well. There's going to be this is not going to be a bad quarterback draft, but you'll find out as the season progresses with college football. It's going to be just the opposite, where we had to wait till the Colts at 15. The first 14 players were offensive players. There's going to be a lot of defensive players in the first round of this draft. It's going to be more defensive leading talent, but I think Shadir Sanders could go number 1. So, oh God, what a great comment. They changed the name because the older white liberals have nothing better to do than complain. My great-grandmother was 100% Cherokee, and the Redskins were her favorite team. She had a man, God, Funk just hops in for a minute and is on fire. Funk spitting facts here, man. Yeah, we're going to wait and see. Shadir Sanders, I'm going to keep saying this, probably going to be the number one pick in the draft. And he's throwing to NFL wide receivers. Like, I think I know it's Joe Horn's kid. I think it's Joe Horn Jr. He's going to be a first-round pick, and I think he's only a sophomore. Travis Henry's going to be top 10 pick unless he breaks his leg or punches a baby or something. And they got another future NFL wide receiver there. So when you're throwing NFL talent, and they're going to the Big 12, which has never been known for defense, and the two powerhouses are in the SEC. So Giants fire head coaches every 2 to 3 years. Dable came in with Joe Schumann, which is why I think that, yeah, I think that I really, really, really believe that Dable has to make the playoffs this year. And don't forget the incident with Wink Martindale. I'm trying to think here. I don't really remember a time from the Giants, at least in recent history, where the defensive remember Wink Martindale. This was public that Wink Martindale just. So what happened is Dable fired two of Martindale's assistants. Martindale went in there, chewed his ass out, and quit. And then they're like, "Oh, we let him go." No, he just went in there, chewed his ass out, walked out the door. And Dable, and whatever reason, Dable and McDermott also hate each other. So there's some off-field issues with Dable. Not off-field as in he's out drinking or partying, anything like that. But there is a definite problem with Dable and assistant coaches and coaches he worked with in McDermott. And this is public knowledge. These are things that ownership and front office will overlook if you're winning. But if you're not winning and you have these problems, no, you're on the hot seat. And if you can't turn Daniel Jones around after giving him this money, after having a defensive coordinator that you brought in walk out the door, that's a big problem. Wink Martindale is well respected in NFL circles. Yes, Baltimore let him go, but it was on friendly terms. He wasn't cussing out John Harbaugh, but he cussed out Brian Dable. And that, by the way, let me ask you this. You don't have to put this in here, but let's say you work for a company. I'm assuming you do. And you see somebody just chew out your boss, cuss him out, just totally rip him apart. Is that a good boss? Why did you, and here's another thing. Why didn't he talk to Wink Martindale first? Why did Wink Martindale have to learn this over the internet or I don't know how he got the information. There's problems in New York. Of all the coaches, 1 through 32, which one's on the hot seat the most? Number one is Brian Dable, in my opinion. But hey, listen, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. But the Daniel Jones contract looks bad. Dable looks bad. And the NFC East is a pretty tough division. It's a pretty tough division. So that's why I'm wondering if Wink Martindale will be successful, because he's never done it. Now, Michigan's one of those rare places where you're always going to get top tier recruits. Their facilities are world class. The money, the revenue sharing is world class. You're going to be on TV a lot. The number one, and no disrespect to the SEC, but the number one rivalry in college football is going to be Michigan and Ohio State. It's the game like everybody's circling. But yeah, you got to bring in the players. Can Wink Martindale do that? The former defensive coordinator is the one who's taken over as head coach. But I always thought Harbaugh was kind of, and that's another thing. I don't know, but from what I'm hearing, the Michigan recruiting class is really good. So if Young fails again with the Panthers, is it time to move on from him? That's going to be a great question because you brought in a offensive-minded coach who had a lot of success with Geno Smith in Seattle, and when he left, he regressed. We're going to find out with Baker Mayfield, but I have a hard time believing Todd Bowles is really going to bring out the best in Baker Mayfield. He's more of a defensive-minded guy, but we'll see what happens. But you can see that he had success with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. And let's be honest, Bryce Young has more talent than either one of those guys. The talent's there. We saw it in glimpses in Carolina, but he needs so much help. Ike Ekwonu hasn't developed yet, but he's got all the tools to be a future superstar at left tackle. The offensive line got better. They got some really, really, really raw young guys in the draft, but I don't think you do because, look, Xavier Legette, remember you went up one spot in the draft to get him. This is a raw dude. Jonathan Brooks, who I thought you traded up to get him. I don't know the condition of his ACL, but he blew it out in, I want to say October or November. He didn't participate at the combine. To the best of my knowledge, he's not even going to be ready to go for training camp. He was first running back off the board. When he's healthy, he looks great, but if you can't stay healthy in college, how you stay healthy in the NFL? In the fourth round, Jatavian Sanders, the tight end out of Texas. The only reason he fell to the fourth was a bad 40 time, all the potential in the world. Again, another raw dude. I think because of that, you get a longer learning curve. Now, Carolina's just been burning through head coaches, getting a guy with no head coaching experience who's only been an offensive coordinator for a couple of years, but he's been successful when he's been an offensive coordinator. I got a feeling even if Carolina's terrible, they'll definitely give Bryce Young a chance, but I have a feeling they'll give Canales a second year, even if they're terrible. Yeah, it's the coach from Washington, and he's widely respected. Before he came to Washington, he coached at a small school, and it was like Division III or Division II, and they like went undefeated 7 straight seasons or something ridiculous. It's just different in Alabama. I'll be honest. I really think that he's not really the guy that they want. I think they want another big name like Nick Saban. But yeah, you're 100% correct. Deion won't let his son go to the Giants. I honestly think whoever has the number one pick, to tell you the truth, I completely disagree. I think Deion would love for his son to go to the Giants. And one of the biggest things about going to New York is that you play in a massive media market. And you have to understand one reason that Eli Manning, a lot of people don't know this, but one of the things about Eli Manning in New York is he had so many endorsements from New York. Like cars, suits, watches, shoes, everything. And by the way, you're a Super Bowl winning quarterback like Eli Manning. You can go to one of these restaurants in New York where it's like, $2,000 a plate. Do you think he's paying for it, or do you think he's just signing an autograph and him and his family take out home? Yeah, Shadir Sanders. Yeah, he would definitely play in New York. I think Deion would love it. New York's place that I think would be ideal. I really do. Neighbors is there, untapped potential. And then keep in mind, if the Giants are in position to have the number one pick, it's because they have a new coach. And if it's somebody Deion doesn't like, if it's something that he feels is harmful. But no, New York would be a place that Deion would love his son to go. I didn't know this, Perry. I didn't know Perry is part Native American. He doesn't have a problem with it. I didn't know that. By the way, Perry spitting facts here. New York is a hard place to play. The New York media are hard to deal with. The only good thing is you can make money because it's a big market. You can make a lot of money. And one thing is that Shadir Sanders grew up as Deion's kid. He's going to be able to handle this. By the way, Shadir Sanders is already A+ in interviews. I've heard him talk, and he's ready. He's ready. Before Wink chewed out Dable in the end during the season, Dable asked anybody had a problem to talk about. Wink said nothing. Wink chewed him out in the end, but he had okay. I didn't know that. I would bet my life Deion wasn't. That's all sure. I 100% disagree, but I'm glad you're telling me this because this is the whole point of the channel. This isn't one of these leftist channels where if you disagree with me, I just cancel you out and start calling you names. The whole point of this channel is to get different opinions in here. I think New York would be a great place because Shadir Sanders is well-versed in handling the media. He's already been doing a fantastic job. Keep in mind, Colorado and Boulder is night and day to New York, but he's already able to handle it and handle it effectively. But that's the whole point of this channel is to talk about these things. I think if New York is in position to get number 1 pick in the draft, I think Deion would love for him to play for the Giants. But I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I really don't think Deion would care. I really don't. I didn't talk about this at all with the Jets, but in the 4th round they took the Florida State quarterback, drawing a blank, Jordan Travis. There's a good chance he would have been I think a 2nd round pick if he didn't get injured, but it wouldn't surprise me if in a year or two from now, Jordan Travis is the starting quarterback for the Jets. Do the Browns blow it? You know what? I'm doing the AFC North. I'm doing the AFC North next, so I will go over this. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's expensive to live in New York, but Eli Manning had so many endorsements, and by the way, you know, if you're winning in New York, there's not a better place to play. But I love this. All right, let's get to my final team, and that's the Patriots. The Patriots, of course, won 4 games. I think that they're going to be better than a 4-win team. In my opinion, the best thing for Drake May to do is sit. I 100% believe that the Patriots would be better off if Drake May sits the whole season. Aaron Rodgers sat. Patrick Mahomes sat. There's a lot of people. I think we talked about Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is going to be thrown into the fire. Okay. Drake May has an excellent chance to learn behind Jacoby Brissett. And Jacoby Brissett has an excellent opportunity if he is the starter to play for big money next year. And by the way, I was going to talk about this more next week, but let me throw this out there. How would you let me throw this out, Gary? How would you feel if the starting quarterback for the Giants in 2025 is Dak Prescott? Because I do think the Giants are going to get a new head coach, but there's going to be some free agent quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, maybe Tua, Jimmy Garoppolo. Trying to think of any big ones off the top of my head. Gardner Minshew could be a free agent. Matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Gardner Minshew may be traded midseason because it looks like right now Aiden O'Connell's winning that quarterback job. So, I mean, there's going to be some quarterbacks available. I think the Giants could pursue one through free agency, like what Pittsburgh did. You know, think they drafted the quarterback, it didn't work out. You know, Drawing a blank on that kid. He's now in Philly. I know that. I'm just drawing a blank on his name. But, I mean, he was first-round pick just 2 years ago. Mac Jones. I mean, so I think here's the drill. Here's the drill, Gary, and I'll talk about this more next week. I do think Dable's going to be fired, but I don't think the Giants are going to be bad enough to have the number 1 pick in the draft. That's kind of the thing. There is a team I think that could have the number 1 pick in the draft, and I'll get to them here in a bit. Spoiler alert, it's an AFC team. The pressure on Mayo is going to be crazy. Kraft won't have much patience for picking in the top 5 again. You're 100% correct. And here's the deal. If this is worst case scenario, if things don't work out in New England, I firmly believe that Mayo is going to be on a short lease. 6, 7 wins is going to be fine, but you have your quarterback in the future. I really think that there's a very good chance that this could be a 500 team because I think the defense could be loaded. I think the defense could be one of the best in football. And by the way, Ramondre Stevenson has all the tools to be a star. All the tools to be a star. I like bigger physical running backs personally. And the thing is with the Patriots, if they play this old school style of a great defense, good special teams, and an effective running game, this is a team that could be a lot better than people think. I think Mayo's going to get a year 2. This isn't a playoff team, but I think this could be a 500 team, and I'm excited for 2025 because I think that's when Mayo should start. But I think he'll play sometime this year. No, I mean, I think the whole Daniel Jones situation is what they were hoping is that Dable could do the same magic with Josh Allen that with Daniel Jones. Remember, Dwayne Haskins was much more higher rated prospect, and it was kind of a curveball that the Giants took Daniel Jones over Haskins. And of course, the Haskins situation didn't work out. I'm not talking about the death. I mean, just when he was playing, remember he was benched and he had some maturity issues, but yeah. Talking about Mac Jones. Oh, I'm sorry, Mac Jones. Well, they brought in Bill O'Brien, and I didn't realize this, but Mac Patricia used to be the Patriots quarterback coach, but Mac Jones and Patricia were not on the same page at all. And it was a little kind of not surprising because you chose him in the first round. So you chose Jones over Patricia, but then you brought in Bill O'Brien and didn't work with Bill O'Brien either. So Mac Jones was the problem. I don't think it was the offensive coordinator. Of course, Bill O'Brien's in Boston College. That's another story I think that could be a lot of fun, is because I think Boston College could be a sneaky team, even though I don't think they're recruiting the right talent. But I think Bill O'Brien will be able to build something with minimal talent there. But Deion son Shadir is probably going to the Cowboys. His father already said regarding his son, it's going to be like Eli Manning drafted by Shadir gets drafted by the Cowboys, Jets, or Steelers. You know what? Let's do this here because I do want to go, because we've been talking about the AFC North. So let's just kind of dive into that. It's the Jets division to lose in the AFC. I agree completely, Perry. I agree completely. Jets defense, like the Ravens, Ray Lewis defense is, and Robert Saleh is as good a head coach Brian Billick was. We'll see. Absolutely. Matt P. understanding football. He's not a good teacher. He was a defensive coordinator. I didn't know this, so I looked it up, but he was at one point in time the quarterbacks coach in New England. I didn't know that until recently because I was looking up three-peats. And what happened is, so New England won Super Bowl. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but they won 2003, 2004. 2005, the offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss, he took over as head coach of Notre Dame. Romeo Crennel took over as head coach of Cleveland. Well, in 2005, I forget who the offensive coordinator was, but Matt Patricia was Tom Brady's quarterback coach. I didn't know that until recently. So Matt Patricia does have experience on both sides of the ball, but he's mainly a defensive coordinator. And it wasn't a good fit. But in hindsight, I think Mac Jones deserves a lot of the blame there, not just Patricia. And you're right, Brady didn't need coach. Well, seriously, in 2005, I mean, you can make that argument. I mean, back-to-back Super Bowl wins, maybe he didn't, but every quarterback has a quarterback's coach. All right. One thing about the NFL schedule is that when you go over the NFL schedule, it's by the win percentage the previous year, which really shouldn't matter. So like when people look at schedules, I throw out all those percentages out the window. I just kind of look at how they're going to do this year. I think the Ravens have the NFL's toughest schedule. It starts off at Arrowhead on Thursday night. And Andy Reid, of course, lost last year on opening day, but Andy Reid opening day is had a phenomenal record in Kansas City, and he's also had a phenomenal record in Philly. And after losing against the Lions, that's tough. I'm not going to bring it up, but just I think the Ravens have the toughest schedule in the NFL. Derrick Henry is 30. When you're a tall, big running back like Derrick Henry, you take more punishment than if you were a shorter, compact. I mean, there's just more of you. And by the way, every clip looks great. Derrick Henry workout videos are amazing. I love Derrick Henry. He's over 30. That's just fact. He's taking a lot of punishment. Sometimes you just fall off a cliff. I mean, I'm going old school here, but anybody remember Franco Harris with the Seahawks? He thought he was still starting caliber running back, and he lasted, I think, half a season. He's like, yeah, I'm done. I remember Ahmad Green signed with the Houston Texans for big free agency money, and I don't even think he was 30, and he was done. Sometimes running backs just hit a wall. The Derrick Henry reminds me a lot of Eddie George. And Eddie George, after his best season, just started to just really fell off of a cliff. He's going to run behind a better offensive line in Baltimore. Keep in mind, Ronnie Stanley, the starting left tackle, has had some problems staying healthy, but overall, the offensive line is very solid. Okay. He's going to have a few games where he's the same guy, but I hope he runs for 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. I don't see it. And the defense is, I already talked about Anthony Weaver taking over at Miami. Mike McDonald's the Seattle Seahawks head coach. So you lost multiple coaches on the defensive side of the ball, but you also lost multiple players. So your defense is going to take a step back. It's just the way it is. So. You know what? Let's actually skip to Pittsburgh. I'll go out of order because I think this is a great opportunity to talk Steelers. Worst case scenario, Denver shows why they just wanted to get rid of Wilson. The offense stalls and the defense regresses, making this the first year Tomlin has a losing season. Okay. I don't think the Steelers will fire Tomlin. But do you remember there's talk about Tomlin retiring? there's definitely a chance Tomlin could move on. Being an NFL head coach is a tough job. But I really think that if Tomlin goes 7-10 and he looks at this roster and he goes, I need a new quarterback. I don't have any receivers. Cam Hayward, who's holding out, by the way, he's getting older. There's definitely a chance that the Steelers and Tomlin could part ways, and I definitely do think that Tomlin could step down. Here's the problem. I think the Steelers' head coaching job, if Tomlin steps down, is easily the worst job to get. Here's why. You don't have a quarterback. Justin Wilson's there for 1 year. Russell Wilson's there for 1 year. You have some age on defense. You have weak spots on defense. You're counting on a couple of rookies on the offensive line, which I think will be better. But the AFC North, look at that division. It's brutal. Do I think Pittsburgh should clean house? I think Tomlin walks into Canton someday. But if I really think that the Steelers could very easily have a losing season. And if that's the case, I can see Tomlin stepping down more because this is not a good job. You don't have a quarterback, which he's had his whole career. Remember, Roethlisberger's been with him the whole time. They drafted his replacement. Kenny Pickett. Okay, finally I got his name right. Kenny Pickett wasn't the dude. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be the guy either. So, yeah. I think the Ravens will be a contender in the AFC. Solid team. Harbaugh's the head coach and Lamar factor. Teams out to guess who's running. So, what they're trying to do offensively is they're trying to have Lamar run less. And for whatever reason, I haven't heard anything public, but it's been documented. Lamar's dropped 20 to 25 pounds. I don't know if that's a good idea, but he thinks it is. I think the reason that they're doing this is because they want Lamar to run less, not more. Now, if Derrick Henry can't handle the workload, remember they got rid of Dobbins, they got rid of Gus Edwards, Keon Mitchell, who looked really, really, really good. He's still recovering from an injury. So if Derrick Henry doesn't work out and Lamar Jackson at his lighter weight is running the ball more, that's going to be a problem. It'll be interesting to see here, but I went out of order to answer your questions here. I went ahead and went with the Ravens here, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to get back on order here. Go with Cleveland. Yeah, and I think it is. I think it is, and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to work out either. I just don't. But if Pittsburgh's able to run the ball and be a run-heavy team, and Russell Wilson, supposedly he was just doing whatever he wanted in Seattle. That's why Seattle got rid of him, sent him to Denver, and then it was just a disaster in Denver. I don't think it's going to work out here. And I'll be honest with you. I think after this year, Russell Wilson will have to go somewhere and be a backup, and he may not want to do that. Russell Wilson's a different type of dude, man. Maybe he wants to play in Canada or something. I don't know. I know he's got a famous wife. I know she's a singer. I know nothing about her. I just know she's famous and she's a singer. So I think teams with long-term coaches lose the players over time. And I've seen it happen over the years, and I'm kind of thinking the same thing. The problem is that So I already talked about Buffalo. I think Buffalo is very appealing because you have a young, super talented quarterback and you have a talented roster. You can't say the same thing about Pittsburgh. And look at the other three teams in the AFC North. Baltimore's a loaded team. Cincinnati's a loaded team. Cleveland's a scary thing. And we're going to talk about Cleveland right now. The one thing I don't get is, so Kevin Stefanski, who won Coach of the Year, he's the head coach of Cleveland Browns. When they had Baker Mayfield, part of the reason they brought in Stefanski was that he's really good at working with young quarterbacks. And what he wants to do is he has a pretty simplified offense by NFL standards, but it's a run-heavy offense. Deshaun Watson operates best as a guy that spreads the field out. And it's funny because I've heard so many people say, oh, Deshaun Watson trade's the worst in history. It's like, really? Do you not know how trade history works? I mean, when you say history, it's all time. Watch the game against Baltimore. That was probably the best game that any quarterback played in the regular season. And Deshaun Watson got injured in that game, still played through it, led the Browns to a victory in Baltimore, over Baltimore, played phenomenal game. Deshaun Watson is easily a top 10 quarterback. All right. He could be a top 5 quarterback. He could be an MVP quarterback. But this offense is a run-based offense. So this is kind of like oil and water. So if this works, Watson and Stefanski, Nick Chubb comes back to form, the defense is elite. They were 13 in points, but number 1 in yards. This is a scary, scary good team. By the way, best case scenario, Cleveland could be a Super Bowl team. Worst case scenario, I kind of had some fun with this. Watson, Stefanski clash. By the way, who will lose their job? Watson, who's under contract for all that money, or Kevin Stefanski? It's going to be Stefanski and Bill Belichick. No, by the way, I just had some fun there. I said some fun. Bill Belichick probably wouldn't want to coach in Cleveland, but I don't know. Oh my God, look at this, folks. Keaton Talk Sports is in the house. Up, Dan, up, chat. Steelers last games. Yes. The by the way, I forgot to mention that here when I brought that up here. After week 10, the Steelers schedule is brutal. So they have the bye week 9, and then week 10 they play Washington, probably win that game. Then they play Baltimore. Those last 8 games of the season, that's a brutal stretch. That could be a stretch that, I mean, that is just absolutely brutal. I didn't talk about that, but yeah. So Keon Mitchell's recovering. He was playing some really good football, but he's not going to be ready for training camp. He may be ready for the regular season. I'd have to look it up. But that's kind of why a lot of people were really pro Derrick Henry going to Baltimore. I was like, I don't know. But then I saw Lamar Jackson lose all that weight, and I'm like, now I really don't know. I'd love to hear Keaton's opinion on his Patriots. I actually think the Patriots are going to hover around 500. Just so you know. If the Browns blow it up, can the Browns trade or cut Watson? No. So if they blow it up, what they'll do is they'll get a new coach. They'll keep Watson, and they have to get a little creative. But here's the deal. The defense is loaded. But the offense revolves around Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb is either, I think he's 28 now, and I think he's going to be 29 during the season. He's had multiple injuries. Can he recover? Because if he recovers and he's 100%, he's probably the best running back in football. The offense revolves around Nick Chubb, not Deshaun Watson. And that's the reason why I don't get it. And can Stefanski change? So not there, not yet, because they gave up a lot. I don't think Watson is. No, I don't think so either, Perry. And that's going to be something kind of interesting to watch out for. I believe Javon Baker can be a really good receiver. I think we could surprise if the offense shows up consistently. Defense easily top 5 with Judon Gonzalez. So it's kind of funny because they drafted, was it Jalen Polk in the second round, and then it was either the 4th or 5th round they drafted Javon Baker. I actually like Baker more than I like Polk. Baker was at Alabama, transferred. I think it's the UCF, if I remember correctly, for some more playing time. 2 really good, young, talented wide receivers. He was drafted 1 spot before Justin Jefferson, drawing a complete blank on his name, receiver out of TCU. Really loved that kid. He looked like he hated life in Philly, but he's got talent. Hasn't really produced yet, but he's re-signed with the Patriots. There's something there. I'm drawing a blank on his name. The Patriots have really done some low-key moves under the radar, moves that really haven't attracted a ton of attention. But I really like what the Patriots have done this offseason, and I think they're enough for around 500. The less we see of May, I think the better. But we'll see. Revealing that at the end. Hang out till the end, Perry. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you look at the Jets, it's the Jets on paper, but until somebody, this question was for Keaton. Okay. Didn't Watson? He had his most success when he was basically operating kind of a run and shoot offense. He really has. David Johnson played some good seasons, but he really has most success when he had Hopkins and a bunch of other receivers and he's throwing the ball everywhere. I mean, there were some issues in Houston, don't get me wrong, but I mean, he was an MVP caliber quarterback. And I think that if he returns to that form, the Browns are a Super Bowl team. We're going to find out. But by the way, I mentioned this a couple times here. I think Stefanski's on the hot seat. And I mentioned McDermott. Those are 2 coaches that are on the hot seat. Robert Saleh has to have a winning season as well. So I mentioned 3 coaches in the AFC. No, they didn't. Remember, they traded for Jerry Jeudy, who I loved coming out of Alabama. I thought this guy was going to be a superstar in Denver. He signed a big contract, a 3-year, $58 million contract with Cleveland. Traded, I think they flip-flopped like a 5 and a 6 or something. But you got Jerry Jeudy. You have, I believe it's Eli Mitchell, smaller guy who I loved coming out of Ole Miss, 4'3" guy. And then you still got Amari Cooper, David Njoku, who is just really just getting better with age. I remember he joined when he was only a redshirt sophomore coming out of the University of Miami. He was like 20. No ceiling on David Njoku, 7-foot high jumper at Miami. So big fan of his. All right, let me see here. Final team, can Jeudy and Watson click? They should. I think Judy's got all the talent in the world. I'm not really sure what fell apart in Denver. Part of it, I think a lot of it was coaching. But if Jeudy and Watson click, you still got Amari Cooper, Eli Mitchell. There's all sorts of talent. And like on paper, if everything clicks for Cleveland, there's no reason they can't go to a Super Bowl. Denver Gator is a huge Jerry Jeudy fan. All right. All right, so the Bengals, by the way, if the Bengals, so worst case scenario, I'm going to read this here. Burrow doesn't stay healthy. Remember, the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator left for Tennessee. Browning's a fluke. Remember last year he played really, really well. And Mike Brown's always been kind of an interesting coach, but let's just say Zach Taylor has a really bad season. Could he be fired? I actually don't think so, because I think he's done a phenomenal job in Cincinnati, but you never know. You never know. I think the Bengals are going to win the AFC North. Spoiler alert. Burrow seems to be fully healthy every other year. I don't know what it is. It's just, year 1 injured, year 2 healthy Super Bowl, year 3 injured, year 4 healthy AFC Championship game, year 5 injured. Well, it's year 6. He's got the money. He's got some awesome long hair now. Mine's better. By the way, I'm not growing my hair out. I just didn't have time to shave my head, if you're wondering why my hair looks so long. Bengals are my pick to go from worst to first. It's funny, when I typed this up, I typed the same thing, or first to worst, but yeah. Denver Gator, Denver Gator is saying that they are going to win 2 games this year. That's a great question. Dan, do you think it's possible the Chiefs can sweep the entire AFC West? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm doing the AFC West last, but 100%. 100% possible, because I'll get into that later on, but I think the Chiefs will win the West. I think their biggest competition this year, talent-wise, was the Chargers, but they're horribly head coach. That's why Harbaugh comes in. Denver had to have Russell Wilson and Sean Payton mesh. I knew it wouldn't work. The Raiders, the only way they're going to be a challenge is if McDaniel and Garoppolo worked, and they didn't. I mean, McDaniel's lasted half the season. So, yeah, absolutely. Going into the AFC South. God, great comments. Great comments. I think the AFC West improves this year, and the Chargers may give Kansas City a run for the division. The issue is with the Chargers is that the Chargers are the problem with the Chargers has never been talent. It's just been coaching. But the thing is, though, is that what Harbaugh wants to do is polar opposite of what the Chargers do. So it just depends on how fast they get everybody on the same page. I did put this down in my notes. Harbaugh's first year as coach of the 49ers, they went 13-3. So is it possible for the Chargers to go from worst to first? Absolutely. The talent's there. The talent is there. It's just a matter of how fast he's going to get everything up to speed. But I don't care what anybody tells you. Brandon Staley had a very finesse-oriented, pass-happy team, and Harbaugh doesn't want to do that. So I think the transition will probably take a little longer. But year 2, I would fear the Chargers. Year 1, I think Kansas City wins that division. I actually think to be honest with you, I think the Chiefs will be the first team in the AFC to clinch the division, but we'll see. Denver Gator had a typo there. Keaton, he really means 2-15, but he says 9-8. Yeah, he's as mature as. Oh God, I love Denver Gator. All right. We'll start off with the Houston Texans here in the AFC South. I think that this is last year they were a 10-win team. They won that playoff game, and on paper, they're better. No question that they are better. The schedule is more difficult, but it's not brutal. I think the Ravens' schedule is brutal. Pittsburgh after week 10 is brutal. This schedule isn't brutal, but it's much more difficult. Okay. I think the Texans are going to win double digits. I really do. I'm going to go over that at the very end because I have them being a little interesting. I think they're a 10-win team. I just don't think it's a Super Bowl team. I think that they're a little bit away, but I love what they did this offseason. I'm a huge Danielle Hunter fan. 16.5 sacks last year. And this scheme, I think seriously, Danielle Hunter could win Defensive Player of the Year this year. Getting 20 sacks is not out of the question if he, of course, he has to stay healthy. So with the Indianapolis Colts, I can give you a preview of 31 teams. And then with Indianapolis, okay, I apologize. I've been having this issue, and I'm so the way anyway. I'm sorry. Technical glitch. Give me a heads up if my audio's off because I've had this happen before, but audio's also. I apologize for the inconvenience. I'll see what I can do about fixing this in the future, but I'm aware it's a technical issue. Right now, it's just my internet provider. I'm kind of stuck with one at my general location. Kind of going on a rant here. I'm actually already, even though my lease is up in February, I'm already looking at other locations. Part of it is due to that I'm stuck with the old school coax because Cox is coming out with fiber. This condo is not set up for fiber because it's an older unit. So I think the Colts might make some noise if AR-15 develops. Jacksonville should challenge for that division. I'm going to go over that at the very end, but 31 teams I can preview. I'm at a complete loss of how to look at the Colts. And if you notice here, like I have no idea what to think about the Colts because nobody knows what you have in Anthony Richardson. Remember, he played in 5 games, got knocked out of 3 of them. So my opinion is that the Colts are looking at what Josh Allen does, and that's what they want Anthony Richardson to do. Very, 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 very. It's not my fault, Denver Gators. The Denver Gators says if you want to end the show, just tell us you'll have to shut down. Yeah, it's technical issues, man. I'm actually having the ball. I'm almost out of coffee, but I need to drink more water. I'm in the desert. I need to drink more water. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go over Jacksonville next, so I'm going in order. But yeah. By the way, I'm going to keep this coming up though. If I am the Colts, I would lean on Jonathan Taylor. You gave him all that money. 2 years ago, he led the NFL in rushing, and he was like 500 yards. I love watching Jonathan Taylor run. A lot of people don't realize this because he was a Big Ten sprint champion. Because he does have home run speed. He's a power back. He's a 230-pound power back. People talk about the Colts having this good offensive line. I've been watching it. I don't think it's great. I actually think there might be a little bit of issues with that offensive line. If they play good and Richardson stays healthy, this is a fun team. To me, this is a team, I can see them winning 5 games, cleaning house. I can see them winning 12 games. and being a threat in the AFC, you have no idea what to expect about Anthony Richardson. Look, Jonathan Taylor had a lot of punishment for 3 straight years at Wisconsin. And after he had that NFL record season, next 2 years, he hasn't been able to stay healthy on a consistent basis. Of course, it was that holdout, but he got his money. He plays 17 games. Taylor's going to be a candidate to lead the NFL in rushing. Donde Mitchell's the guy I think Kansas City should have drafted instead of Xavier Woods. He could be rookie of the year. The Colts are a team. It wouldn't surprise me if you have a Donde Mitchell win offensive rookie of the year and Late Latu win defensive rookie of the year. And it looks like what they're going to do defensively is they got a bunch of really good edge rushers. Kwity Paye was a guy I loved coming out of Michigan, but he was raw. Sansa Mikibung, I think, had 8.5 or 9.5 sacks last year. Now you add Latu. This could be a fun team. I have no idea what to expect out of Anthony Richardson. No idea. And so I have no idea. Because if it doesn't work out, the Colts may clean house. And by the way, Chris Ballard, who's the general manager, he's from Kansas City. Excellent job in helping build the Chiefs dynasty. It wasn't him. It was the owner who fell in love with Anthony Richardson. So it wouldn't surprise me if things don't work out, if Ballard says, you know what, you're interfering. I can't build the team I want to build. But this, by the way, like drafting Latu, which was I was surprised by it because he was first defensive player off the board. You know, I had Dallas Turner rated higher. That to me is a Chris Ballard move. Just draft the best player you have, regardless of what other people think. So, but Colts, major question mark. Jacksonville, and this is why I want to talk it out here. I didn't bring it up, and I wish I would have, because I mean, Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. could be phenomenal. Christian Kirk is a guy I absolutely loved coming out of college. I thought he was going to have a bigger impact in Arizona. When he signed that big contract with the Jaguars, I thought it was a mistake, but he proved me wrong. He's a wide receiver number 1. Evan Ingram finally had that potential opened up. What was that, 108 catches? Somebody had to look it up for me. Travis Etienne, a lot of people didn't realize this, but Travis Etienne, I mean, 1,484 total yards and 12 touchdowns. He could have a Christian McCaffrey type season in 2024 and be an MVP candidate. But let's face it, if the Jaguars win, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the reason. And here's the problem. I'm still here. Is there an issue? Can somebody put a comment in there if there's still an issue? Because I'm just ranting on here. I didn't bring it up, but look, best case scenario, Trevor Lawrence is an MVP. I'm not happy with Jaguar secondary, but this front seven's loaded. This front seven could be really, really, really good. Okay. Thanks, brother. Thanks, man. Thanks for the heads up. So Ryan Nielsen was public, and he said that he's going to try to use Trayvon Walker a little more on the inside this year, which I thought was interesting, and that's what they should have been doing all along. And I think he's going to be a little confusing. Shit. The linebacker they drafted in the first round out of Utah, one of my draft crushes, him with Forsey Okiwan, could be the best inside linebacker duo in all football. If Nielsen builds up this front seven, you can hide the deficiencies in the secondary. It's just that, look, in the AFC, if you don't have a good secondary, you're really kind of screwed. But that front seven could be really good. The way I look at Jacksonville is if they hide the deficiencies they have in the secondary with a dominant front seven and a super high-powered offense, this is a very, very dangerous team. Christian Kirk played like a number one last year. Ridley at times looked like a number one, then a two, but well, no, thanks for letting me know because I'm having some technical issues on my end, Perry. So, but I really believe that this is going to be a two-man race here. I think it's going to be Jags and Texans the whole season. I really believe that. I'm going to level with you. I really think Tennessee is going to be terrible. And there's a Titans fan I follow on Instagram, and he seems like a decent guy. And somebody put out some preseason predictions. One of them had the Patriots going 9-8. There's a bunch of comments about that. But they had the Titans going 2-15. And they were like, no way, we only went. Yeah, I could easily see this. Now, here's the deal. Everything Tennessee's doing just seems to be mismatched, and I don't think they're in right. I don't see what they're doing is the right thing to do. Denver Gator's going to be mad because he loves Will Levis. Denver Gator, I'm sorry. Look, I'm drinking coffee here. I'm not putting mayonnaise in my coffee. Denver Gator does it because Will Levis does it. It's beyond disgusting. I don't know why you guys like it, but Denver Gator loves Will Levis. So, Denver Gators, here's the drill. Levis, so here's a little backstory. Denver Gator hits me up, and I encourage you guys to do the same thing. You know, I'm still kicked off Facebook for whatever stupid. I created a new Facebook. I'm not doing too much with it yet, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Hit me up. So Denver Gator hits me up, and he's like, Dan, all these people are talking about Will Levis going number one, and I'm like, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of it. You tell me. He's like, Dan, I don't see it. I've been watching Levis, and. So this I'm paraphrasing here, but Denver Gator hits me. He goes, look, I'm hearing all this hype about Will Levis. I don't see it. What do you think? And I'm like, I haven't really watched him. So I watched a couple games, and I never saw it. I never saw the number one pick overall. Here's what I saw out of Will Levis. NFL size, NFL arm. I never saw him just take apart a team. Now, keep in mind, Kentucky, now the SEC is growing, of course, but out of 14 teams in the SEC, Kentucky probably had the 13th, just behind Vanderbilt. Denver Gator would have to confirm, but so he's doing more with less. But every time I watch Kentucky play, I never saw a defense go, man, we can't have Levis just go back there and throw the ball 50, 60 times or we're screwed. Never saw that. You remember LSU won national championship. They came back the next year. Another brain freeze. The head coach just recently passed away. Came from Washington, Mississippi State, and that quarterback threw 75 times. Mississippi State upset LSU. God, killing me because I love that guy. If Will Levis threw the ball 75 times, they wouldn't have won that game. Drawing like 4 name blanks here. In the offense that Callahan is bringing, it looks like what they're trying to do is do the same thing that Burrow does with the Bengals, which is a quick rhythm passing offense. That is not Will Levis's strength. Will Levis's strength is a vertical stretch the field type of offense, not a quick read type of offense. And I I really think that out of all the teams in the AFC, Tennessee is going to be the worst. And I think after the season, I'm very sorry to say this, I think after the season, they're going to realize, hey, Will Levis is a second-round pick, not a first-round pick, and this will be year 3 in 2025. You can move on from it. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Tennessee could easily clean house. Giants, Broncos, Panthers are your 3 worst teams next year. I got Tennessee. Mike Leach, thank you. Yeah, so Mike Leach, and I forget the quarterback. I think he actually transferred out when Leach passed away. First game of the season, LSU, massive upset. Mississippi State comes in there. Leach, every single play is a pass. If Will Levis was at Mississippi State throwing the ball 70 times a game, they don't win that game. He's not that type of dude. But that's the type of offense that you want to run, that quick with them. Everything about Tennessee is square peg, round hole. I don't think it's going to work. They're my pick to be the worst. I really think that next year. So we talked about Shadir Sanders. If Gary, if you're still there, the question is, will Dion want Shadir to go to Nashville, which is a small market? And I don't think he will. I don't think he'll have a problem with New York, but I do think he'll have a problem with Tennessee. With the Panthers, it comes down to Young's development with the head coach and get the most. Yeah, absolutely. But remember, in the draft, all these young dudes. Yeah, and that's another thing. Ike Ekwonu needs to step up along with they made some changes in the offensive line, which I really like. They spent a lot of money this offseason on the offensive line. See, that's the whole point, is that if Tennessee feels Levis is our guy, they need to build an offense which suits him. I really think Tennessee should have kept Vrabel because it looked like that's what they were going to do. Then they decided to get rid of Vrabel, and they bring in a coach who does the polar opposite of what Levis does well. That's why I think that if they keep the coach, I think they'll get rid of Levis. Shadir Sanders will come in, and they'll start day one. Now, I think that another possibility is that without Vrabel, the defense gets worse. The offense doesn't click. And the owner says, you know what? I'm just going to move on. Now, Vrabel had instant success. You bring in Callahan, you win 2 games. I'm thinking you just move on. By the way, I mean, Vrabel won't come there. I'm pretty sure Belichick won't come there. But you got Ron Rivera. He's a big name, and there's going to be a lot of really good head coaching candidates. Plus, there's going to be other candidates that were fired. Brian Daboll may be very appealing because Brian Daboll may have a better relationship with, than maybe a whole thing to push for Shadir Sanders. But we'll get there. Tennessee's my pick to be the worst team in the NFL. AFC at least. Now we're back. Now we're going to save the best for last, AFC West, and we talked about this. I'm going to start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, I'm going to say it right now. I think the Chiefs win the AFC West. I don't think that's even a debate. I don't think they're going to win a three-peat. So this is funny. I'm not meaning funny. I'm not insulting you, Keaton. So I want to make sure. It may sound like it, but so Titans 4-6, but they're not 1 of the 3 worst. So that means that all these teams are going to win 3 games. Yeah, exactly. Carolina did that. Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL Jatarius Sanders, the tight end out of Texas, raw dude. Also, like Tommy Tremble, is a big fan of his coming out of Notre Dame. So they got some nice pieces in Carolina. I'm going to talk about that next week. But yeah, I'm going to talk a lot about Carolina because high risk, high reward across the board with Carolina. I think Chiefs easily win the West. Easily. I just don't think they three-peat. And one thing is that Chris Jones, who's going to be 30 in July. One thing I cannot emphasize this enough. The Kansas City Chiefs over the last 5 to 6 years have played an additional, I didn't do the math, but about an additional 15, 16 games, which are playoff games. Remember, they played Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco after 17 regular season games. So Kansas City played an extra 5 weeks while the rest of the AFC West was getting healthy. It's Brian Callahan, and he brought I know it's Callahan. His dad is Bill Callahan, who was on the coaching staff with the Bengals. He's the offensive line coach. He's well-respected offensive line coach. So that's why they took J.C. Latham in round 1, is because Bill Callahan, former NFL head coach, one of the best offensive line coaches in football, he was with Dallas when Tyron Smith, the right tackle at USC, was going to be the starting left tackle day 1. Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach. Jedrick Wells did the same thing with, Bill Callahan did the same thing with Jedrick Wells, Alabama tackle, when they went from right tackle to left tackle. And J.C. Latham's a better prospect than Jedrick Wells, but both of them are very solid left tackles. There's one other guy. So there's a precedent of moving a right tackle to left tackle. And that's what they're going to do with J.C. Latham. And Bill Callahan's done this for his sons. Brian Callahan, Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator for the Bengals last year, but Zach Taylor really ran that offense. But it looks like with Zach, remember they invested a lot in free agency, but you can tell that what they're trying to do is the same thing the Bengals are doing, but they don't have the same pieces. It's very weird. I'm gonna go over this. I'll go over this. Let's go over this right now. Right now, I've been following a lot of Raiders social media lately, and Aiden O'Connell's winning the battle over Gardner Minshew. I was expecting Minshew to be crowned the starter, but that's not really the case. Aiden O'Connell looks like the better guy. And remember they drafted I just drew a blank on his name. I have to read this here. They drafted Brock Bowers out of Georgia, which I was really kind of surprised about, to be honest. And I can't remember. One of you guys told me it was a coin flip between Terrion Arnold and Brock Bowers, and they should have took Arnold. But Wilkins and Crosby on that defensive line is brutal. It's brutal. I didn't realize this until I looked at it. But the Raiders were 9th in scoring defense last year. Now you add Christian Wilkins, one of the best defensive tackles. And by the way, they use Chris Jones inside and outside. Wilkins is a solid. But Wilkins really, to be honest with you, I think would be better suited in a odd front. and so it could be mismatched, but bottom line, if the Raiders went to the playoffs last year, Max Crosby would have won Defensive Player of the Year. Max Crosby is the best defensive player in football, probably. But the Raiders, I mean, he's the only guy the Raiders had last year. That was they had some other guys that are okay, but now you get Wilkins. I kept on hearing comps with Bowers to Kittle, and I don't like that comp because Kittle's a legitimate, like, 250-pound dude. Brock Bowers looks like he played at 225. And, I mean, I'll be honest, I also really love Michael Mayer. I actually love Michael Mayer. I wouldn't have chosen Bowers because, a guy, Michael Mayer, who's a phenomenal tight end. He was a high second-round pick last year, so you're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. Great. Okay. Do you have a creative enough offensive coaching staff? Well, you got Luke Getsy, who was fired from Chicago, like right after the season. And then they anyway, I won't get into that. But is Getsy really the guy that's going to be able to build these two tight ends and Aiden O'Connell? It's going to be interesting. Here's the deal with the Raiders. I think the defense is going to be really good. There are some holes on defense, let's be very clear, but I think the defense is going to be really good because I think Wilkins is a monster, and Max Crosby may be the best defensive player in the NFL. He's that good. I really, really like what Antonio Pierce did last year. I was very, very impressed. But this offense is not going to be good. I can't see it being good. All right. Let's move on let's move on here to the Denver. I love Denver Gator, man. I love Denver. Denver Gator's my boy. By the way, Denver Gator, I texted you last week. You never texted me back, but Denver Gator is gonna do some college football stuff for me this year. Very excited about that. All right, so now I'm here to the Denver Broncos. Here's the deal. Everybody says that Sean Payton can build a quarterback, but you have to understand something. Drew Brees was in the NFL for 5 years and went to a Pro Bowl before he went to the Saints. Nobody remembers that. It wasn't just he arrived and Sean Payton this guy was in the NFL for 5 years. He went to a Pro Bowl. He had a lot of success with the Chargers. Then, Brees, matter of fact, that was one of the things Marty Schottenheimer was. Oh, no shit. Okay, I'm sorry, man. I got I'll text you after the show. I fucked up. I agree completely, Perry. Perry says that Bowers has a day one impact looked out. I 1000% agree. If he takes off, watch out. But do you have the right? Do you have the right coaching staff? Remember Getsy? People were complaining left and right about the Bears offense. He was fired immediately after the season. Now he has to go to a team that has some holes on the offensive line, specifically at right tackle. Questionable quarterback. Josh Jacobs is gone. Yeah, they still have Devontae Adams, but yeah. All right. That thank you so much for that, and I will text you later on. I don't know why I didn't get this. We'll see. If Denver Gator texts me back, because this is my prediction for Denver Broncos. Here's the deal. Your best defensive player is Justin Simmons. He's gone. Okay. You're giving Russell Wilson $90 million next year to play in Pittsburgh. I'm exaggerating, of course. Drew Brees was an established, very good veteran quarterback. It was. I feel like I would rant about it for hours on end because Marty Schottenheimer loved Drew Brees. It was the general manager who wanted Phillip Rivers, and that's exactly what happened. Remember, there was an issue with his elbow. He had that Tommy John surgery, and there was a lot of question marks whether Drew Brees could recover. So it was kind of risky for the Saints to sign him, but it obviously worked out. And by the way, Perry, you're 100% correct. But what I'm trying to tell you, though, is that he was a Pro Bowl quarterback with the Chargers. He was a Pro Bowl quarterback with the Chargers. It's different than being a rookie. And by the way, calling Bo Nix and Drew Brees, and he's a more athletic Drew Brees. Really? Drew Brees is one of the 10 best quarterbacks ever play. My opinion only. Stats will back that up, though. I think year one is going to be a struggle. Your defense was bad, but it got better as the season progressed. they didn't give up 70 all year long, but they did give up 70 to the Dolphins early in the year. Then the defense got better towards the end of the year, but the issue with the Denver Broncos is that is not really going to be on the defensive side of the ball, which I don't think is going to be great. 3 years ago, this was one of the best defensive units in football. It's not going to be a great defensive unit this year. I can tell you that. Bo Nix will struggle, but does Bo Nix get better? Next year, I would fear the Broncos. This year, I'm sorry, Denver Gator. I know you're going to hate me, but I think the Broncos finished dead last. And yeah, you're right, Perry. The Bears were a mess, and what they did is they pinned the blame on Getsy. Then for some reason or another, instead of getting the maximum value, and then they we tried to do business. That was bullshit. They just dropped the ball. The Bears were a disaster, and I can see the Bears cleaning house, and I'll get into that more next week. So, but yeah, I got Denver finishing last. Yeah, I think Bo Nix is just going to take time. It's just going to take time. If you're a Broncos fan and you're expecting Bo Nix to be the second coming of Drew Brees, great. If you're expecting it in 2024, you're going to hate next year. They're going to struggle, but if Nix gets better as the season goes on, 2025 is going to be extremely bright. But yeah, they're dead last. Okay. Here's the drill. One sentence. I fully expect Harbaugh to turn the team around, but how long? They were 13-3 his first year in San Francisco. And the Chargers are super talented. They brought in Gus Edwards. They brought in J.K. Dobbins. These are really good running backs, and they're physical runners. J.K. Dobbins could easily be one of the 10 best running backs in football. Easily. He just has to stay healthy, which he's never been able to do. Love J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State, ironically. For those of you who remember, I said Quentin Johnston was my Quentin Johnston. It's not Johnson, it's Johnston. There's a T in there. He was my number one receiver, but he was raw. He really struggled last year. I'm hearing he looks great so far. Was it Joshua something? He's another guy, really, really talented dude. I forgot. I didn't even mention Mike Williams in the Jets, but so, and then remember, you drafted Joe Alt, so you fixed the hole at right tackle. You got two big physical running backs with worlds of talent. J.K. Dobbins, like I said, world of talent. Just can he stay healthy? Let's just say he does. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to think I'm joking around, but if J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, he could easily lead the NFL in rushing. He's that talented. He's like a so when he was at Ohio State, he was one of the fastest guys on the team, and he played running back. He's 5'11", 195. And he knew he was going to be a starter, so he purposefully put on 20, 25 pounds of muscle. And by the way, he's solid. He came into the NFL like at 220. And he's like, I can lose a step, but it's more important for me to be able to handle the workload in college. And he kept that attitude, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's a 220, 230-pound running back with breakaway speed. He just can't stay healthy. But when he's healthy, he's as good as it gets. He really is. I think this is a 500 team, Chargers. The talent's there. But I will tell you this. If the Chargers get into the postseason, you don't want to play this team. If the Chargers make the playoffs, fear them. Because Harbaugh will have that defense ready by the end of the year. They will be able to run the ball. And Herbert will win an MVP. But I will say this. It wouldn't surprise me if Harbaugh gets a little crazy and just gives I wouldn't surprise me if there's some crazy trade where Herbert and the Chargers get like 4 first-round picks. I only have one for you, Hatter South 710. I only have one. And I am going to give you my AFC preview. If you're nice enough, stick till the end of the show. I'm going to give you my preview of the AFC. Now, keep in mind, there's June 1st free agency. Teams are on backloaded roster. We're going to have preseason. Unfortunately, we may have preseason injuries. It's happened before. But before June 1st, this is my prediction. I'm sorry, this is the old clip. This is my prediction. All right. The Jets are my Super Bowl contender. Buffalo will make the playoffs. Cincinnati will win the North. Baltimore will make the playoffs. Cleveland will make the playoffs. I hated to do this. Jacksonville over Houston. Houston does not make the playoffs. I have Jacksonville in an upset. I think Trevor Lawrence, I don't know what it is. It's just the more and more I look at Houston on paper, I know they're better. Houston, I think, finishes 10-7, stays home. It sucks. I'm sorry. I really want to change my mind, but I look at that Cleveland defense, and I really think that defense, and there's so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. By the way, could Houston make it in Cleveland? Sure. But I got Jacksonville, and I think Kansas City could easily be the 1 seed, but I have the Jets as my AFC Super Bowl team. But you have to wait till next week for me to do the NFC. Harbaugh's 100 times. I 100% agree. The problem is with Harbaugh is that Harbaugh's system is so different than Staley's. I just think it's going to take at least 1 season. To tell you the truth, you can't do it, but to be honest, Harbaugh would have been a much better fit in Denver, and Sean Payton would be a much better fit with the Chargers. Those two should really flip-flop, and you would have something. Both Denver and the Chargers, I think, are going to take one. It's going to take at least 1 season. I think the Raiders, God, I'm looking at Wilkins to me. Why the Dolphins didn't keep him is a big mystery, and I don't understand that, and that's why I think Miami does not make the playoffs. I think Tennessee is going to have the number 1 pick in the draft. Everything I see about the Titans, it doesn't look like it. Everything looks like square peg, round hole. You have this big physical offensive line, and then you got Tony Pollard as your starting running back that you paid more than Derrick Henry, even though Derrick Henry would be a much better fit behind that offense and that offensive line. You bring in you bring in a good offensive line coach. You get the prospect at left tackle. You finally fix that offensive line, and then you change schemes dramatically. Anyway. But yeah, I got the Jets. You have to tune in next week. For the NFC. And so what's going to happen is what I'm going to do is this is my AFC preview before June 1st. A lot of changes are going to be made. Then next week I'm going to do Detroit. But after June 1st, I'm going to talk about some of the free agent acquisitions that have been made. I'm going to talk about some of the quarterback, some of the OTA things I'm hearing, some of the off-season stuff I'm hearing, some of the mini camp. For example, I'm hearing the Chicago offense looks terrible, but the defense looks really good, which to me just says Caleb Williams isn't ready. I think Houston wins the AFC South. Houston head coach is very good. I think he is good. But I think he also got a little lucky in that CJ Stroud was ready. And it looks like right now, look, the schedule's a lot more difficult this year coming around. And I also remember Jacksonville was 7-3 and just fell apart last year. This was hard for me, Perry. It was really hard for me to pick Jacksonville over Houston, but I think Doug Peterson's a better coach. They just said, hey, look, the defense didn't work. But out of the four divisions, the one that's most likely to change is the AFC South, because I can't decide between Jacksonville and Houston. I didn't just flip a coin, but I could have. And I've gone back and forth. It's just that when I look at that offense and I look at your boy, Brian Thomas Jr., and I look at Christian Kirk and I look at Travis Etienne and I look at Doug Peterson and I look at Trevor Lawrence, and I'm like, man, this offense could be amazing. And I also look at that. Devin Lloyd is the name I was trying to remember. I love Devin Lloyd coming out of Utah. He had a phenomenal year last year. He's just going to get better. Foresee Okawan's a tackling machine. Travion Walker had 10 sacks last year, but I don't think him playing like they're not using him right. So Ryan Nielsen, new defense coordinator, has already said that we're going to use him more inside and move him around. That's what Georgia did. And he's at his best when he's playing, because he's a solid run defender. 10 sacks is very good. Let's be very clear. But he's never – Josh Allen on the other side had 17.5. That's a guy that your sacker – Travion Walker is never going to be a 17.5 sack guy. He's never going to be that guy. Never going to be that guy. But put him on the inside, that's smart. That's really smart. God, Perry at the end of the show just spitting facts. I meant this one because I agree completely, and I'm going to talk about that. I do think Caleb Williams is going to be a bust, but I'll talk about that more next week. The Finns and the Bills are my two biggest fallers this year. You know what? I let me see here. So Denver 8-9, I think will go backwards. I mean, Tennessee won 4 or 5 games last year. I think Pittsburgh has a losing record, and I hate betting against Tomlin, but by the way, Perry, you're 100% correct. I mean, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. Perry's spitting facts here. Perry's on fire late here. I think Houston defense is better than Jacksonville defense, is what Perry says. And I 100% agree. 100% agree. But I like Peterson more than I like Ryans. I like Trevor Lawrence today more than CJ Stroud. Maybe he proves me wrong. Travis Etienne's better than Joe Nixon. That's not even a question. Is Diggs really going to help, or is he going to be the guy? Is he going to help, or is he going to take away? Because Nico Collins was the number one guy, and does that work, or does it blow up? Schedule's a lot more difficult. I went back and forth, but it's funny. I'm quoting Keys, who I'm going to try to get back on this summer. quarterback head coach combo is one of the first things I look at. And I like the Peterson, Trevor Lawrence combo better than I like the D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud today. Could be wrong. Got some great comments late here. I see the Cowboys regressing this year, terrible offseason. I'm going to talk about that more next year, but they needed more in Ezekiel Elliott. I don't understand not drafting a running back. Trey Benson, who I hopefully got that name right, who the Cardinals took in the 3rd round. That would have been a great 2nd-round pick for the Cowboys. However, I did love Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan. That's going to be a guy Mike Zimmer falls in love with. He's going to be a good player. Yeah, you're right. At best, Caleb Williams is like Kyler Murray, very similar skill set. I think Kyler Murray, though, has much more talent. He's much faster. I think has more arm talent, but we're going to find out, man. I mean, we're going to find out, and we're going to see what happens. Remember, Kyler Murray had Cliff Kingsbury, and Kyler Williams, well, he's got a new offensive coordinator. Was it Eberfluss as the head coach? We'll talk about that a little more next week. But yeah, I've been adamant, and I'm going to keep saying it. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a bust. I got One Pride 40, man. Welcome, One Pride, man. I actually meant to send you something on Instagram, and I didn't, but I'll hit you up because I don't want to say anything here. But got Lions versus Colts tickets. Is that preseason or is that regular season? That's gonna be a lot of fun. Detroit should be really amped up. NFC's next week. So hopefully One Pride I can get you in early, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do same thing: East, North, South, West. So the one thing I didn't do in this show is I didn't put my draft grades, and I meant to do that. It's just occurring to me now, but. You're 100% correct. God, Perry, you're on fire late. I'll be honest with you. If I'm Miami, I really would have moved on this offseason and got somebody else, tried to draft somebody. It's not. I don't think it's going to work out. And I think that when you sign them, does he stay healthy? And even if he does stay healthy, is he going to be that top 5 quarterback? And I don't think he is. If I had a daughter, I'd want Tua to date her, but NFL quarterback, I don't think he's ever going to be elite. And if you do pay him, it's going to be a disaster. And I 100%. By the way, even if he does, sign and he's ready, he's got to play like a top 5 guy, and I don't think he is. You're also right. CJ Stroud could be an MVP. I talked about that. Trevor Lawrence could be an MVP. I didn't mention it because the current favorite to win MVP is Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think he is. I also think that, when One Pride was here earlier, he said something about Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams, big, strong, fast dude. I mean, you never know. He's got tons of talent, but he always had no, he's with Chicago. One of my favorite receivers, like Keenan Allen. Next to him, of course, now he's got Garrett Wilson. But with the Jets, though, Aaron Rodgers can always be an MVP. Aaron Rodgers is always an MVP candidate. But Breece Hall, I would really like it. Don't be surprised if a running back, maybe somebody like Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson could be too. But don't be surprised if a running back may surprise and be an NFL MVP. It's been since 2008 since Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he has to take next step. Does Diggs help or hurt? By the way, the Cowboys did have a very solid draft. They got 2 starters on the offensive line, 2 players I absolutely love. Tyler Guyton remember he was at 29. I was mocking him at 16, a trade up to Seattle, but there was lots of Tyler Guyton hype, and you get him at 29, very talented player. He could be a Pro Bowler as a rookie. All talent in the world. All talent. Marshawn Nealon's a guy I think Mike Zimmer is going to fall in love with. Hey, listen, One Pride, talk to me, man. My YouTube channel is now monetized. Since I had to fire right before the Chiefs-Bills game, it's kind of gotten down, but I got so many great regulars that have been on. This is the off season. I have some other things that I'm doing right now. If you go to my channel, you see Afternoon Delight, but I haven't really been promoting it yet. And that's coming this fall, but I have something very aggressive this fall. I'll hit you up about it. Hit me up and we'll chat later, because after today I'm off. It's the only day I get off this week, and I get to do my favorite thing in the world. I get to talk football, which is really exciting. I think Murray has something to prove. Williams don't. I feel like Williams is too weak-minded and me player. I don't think he can handle pressure of the big market and being the number one pick. Perry, if you can, copy and paste this in the next week's chat, because I'm going to talk about both the Cardinals and the Bears, but I think Chicago is a terrible spot for Caleb Williams. Terrible spot for Caleb Williams. I don't know. Do you mean to me, Luke? I love Keaton. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Keaton Talks Sports as a YouTube channel. He's been giving me lots of shout outs, which I really appreciate. He says Dan Talks Sports. I talk football, only football. Keaton Talks Sports has been coming out with some great videos. He had to answer this, but you have to answer this originally. You were doing basketball, but I don't know what you're doing. This is amazing. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Love to know what you're doing. Unless it's Herbalife, which I want nothing to do with. I had a buddy of mine got addicted because he bought all into that. So I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube. I'll probably get fined or whatever. I think Diggs helps. He needs a fresh start. Diggs will be wanting to prove he's the reason the Bills won, not Allen. Well, see, here's the deal. And this is kind of what I see as a problem. Nico Collins emerged, and he was a guy I loved coming out of Michigan. He sat out for that COVID year, and it took a while for him to get going. But last year he exploded. I think it was 74 receptions, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6'4", 210. I remember his pro day he ran a 4.42, and I was like, Chiefs, please draft him. He went to Texas, went to Houston, kind of 2 years, did nothing. Blew up last year with C.J. Stroud. That needs to be the number one guy. Nico Collins needs to grow. Is Diggs going to demand the ball too much? Is he going to cause problems? Because you know what? He caused problems in Minnesota. He caused some problems in Buffalo. I like the direction I like the direction Houston went, but you got, because you're building through the draft, and then all of a sudden you add these guys from the outside. Does it work? Because if it works, it's going to be fantastic. One Pride OnlyFans. Sign up for one. By the way, One Pride, I charge $99.99 for my gold content. That's where Keys is right now on my OnlyFans. It is on my OnlyFans. So One Pride's not kidding. He does have an OnlyFans. But if Diggs can come in and help Collins grow and be the number two guy and be happy he's the number two guy, then Houston's going to be dangerous. Danielle Hunter could have 20 sacks this year. He's really good. We'll have to see. I could easily flip Houston and Jacksonville. But I said last year Trevor Lawrence is going to be my MVP candidate. I was really off there. But I look at that offense, and that offense could just be unstoppable. But I also remember looking at them at 7-3 and is this a team to fear? Then they just fell apart. I don't see them doing that. But Houston, that schedule is going to be tough. we got a long ways to go, man. But isn't this great? Less than 3.5 months away, and we got the NFL season. And I'm going to end it on that. Well, Perry says, I think the Bills take a step back this year if the Bills have another good draft. Yeah, I just think McDermott is not real. I think they need to move on from McDermott, even though he's had success. There's a lot of roster turnover, so we're going to find out. If McDermott makes it work, then I'm wrong. If he doesn't make it work, Buffalo, in my opinion, let's just say McDermott's fired. Buffalo, to me, would be the number one team to go to because you have a superstar quarterback, you have a lot of talent on defense, and you have some good players on offense. Besides Josh Allen, you got James Cook, you have Dalton Kincaid. We'll have to see what happens with Keon Coleman. So, not going to lie, OnlyFans. Yeah, believe it or not, I've never gone to OnlyFans. I've never gone to OnlyFans, but there's content creators I've heard do OnlyFans. It was funny. Just not too long ago, I saw the movie and I thought she was terrible. But Bella Thorne, I don't watch any of the Disney stuff, so I knew she was a Disney girl. But if you ever see the movie, it's blended. It's a Drew Barrymore, Adam Sandler movie. Not a bad movie. I love Adam Sandler movies. So you have to, it may not be your taste, but it's not a bad movie. Bella Thorne is Adam Sandler's daughter, but she has short hair. So everybody convinces that, oh, she's a boy. And it's like, come on. Nah, she's not very good. But supposedly she does like OnlyFans now. She quit acting, does OnlyFans. And she's beautiful. But so I know she does OnlyFans. I know a lot of girls are just doing OnlyFans, and I do think it's dying out, and hopefully it goes away. Well, I can't do Facebook anymore, Perry, but I am on Instagram and Twitter. My links are below. If you're on social media, Perry, please follow me, and you can always DM me. So, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. And I know Keys is, and some other guys I know have done TikTok, and a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say I should get on it. I've never been a fan of it. It's something I may consider for the future, but for right now, I'm not. So, yeah, I agree, Perry. I think it will happen too. I think what will happen, and I'll bring this up again. I think Buffalo gets to the playoffs. I think if they go out in the wild card round, which by the way, let's bring this up again. Okay. More than likely, here I think the Jets and the Chiefs will be 1 and 2. Okay. So let's just say Buffalo, Kansas City in round 1. Okay. And they lose again. They could be out. Buffalo, Jacksonville. All right, Buffalo, Jacksonville. Jacksonville beats them in the wild card round. Easily could happen. Cincinnati, Buffalo. Cincinnati beats them again in the playoffs. Remember, Buffalo hosted Cincinnati. Cincinnati destroyed them with 3 backup offensive linemen. Kansas City didn't have a problem, but Sanders is hitting. You're talking Shadir Sanders. So here's the deal with if you're talking Shadir Sanders. Okay. The biggest problem Dion had is that he didn't recruit offensive linemen and defensive linemen nearly well enough. He brought in a lot of guys from Jackson State that played on the offensive and defensive line. They were not D1 ready or whatever, FBS or whatever it was. Shadir Sanders got beat up a lot, and he learned from it, and he showed some really great toughness too. I think that they're going to shore up the offensive line, maybe not the defensive line. That's something Denver Gator or somebody else that let me know is I have no idea how Colorado's recruiting, but I do know that Colorado went into the offseason with a big priority of offensive line because they have NFL receivers, and Shadir Sanders I think he's going to be the number one pick in the draft. I think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I really do. They're going to play in the Big 12. They're probably going to win at least 9 games. They're going to put a lot. Seriously, they have multiple receivers that are going to be first-round picks. Not NFL players, first-round picks. So, no, I don't think so either, but I've heard more and more people saying that. So, it's something I really don't follow, but I'm aware that there are women that either have been famous in one way or another, just go to OnlyFans. I've never been to OnlyFans, so, but hopefully it goes away. Yeah, okay, so Miami beat Buffalo. Pittsburgh would have got in. I can't remember the playoff scenario, but Buffalo came really. Remember, Buffalo was 5-6 and had to win 6 straight just to get in. No, Adam Sandler. Oh, Adam Sandler. Oh, hit and miss. Okay, sorry. So Adam Sandler. So Blended was kind of. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can watch it and like the first 5 minutes, you know how it's going to play out. But Drew Barrymore's not bad in it. If you're looking to find a serious movie with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, no, but 50 First Dates isn't bad. I love The Wedding Singer. Blended, I watched not too long ago. It's not terrible, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a good movie, but it's entertaining. He's in a few movies with Jennifer Aniston where they do like murder mysteries or something like that. Those are surprisingly good. The more Adam Sandler does movies, I think the better he gets. But I mean, I can watch Happy Gilmore and always get a laugh or two out of Happy Gilmore, So, but anyway, I'll end on that note. Guys, thank you so much for joining. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. My social media links currently just Instagram and Twitter. You can DM me. One probably DMs me. Denver Gator, who's now off social media, but if you really want it, just hit me up on social media. I can send you my phone number. I don't care. Me and Denver Gator text each other. Even though Keys, Gooch, Luke G, even though they got my phone number, we usually communicate via Instagram, usually. But Instagram and Twitter, if you hit me up, send me a friend request, I respond to my DMs. And then if you're like, hey, Dan, I'll do social media, you might have us text you. Yeah, it'd be great. Me and Denver Gator quit social media, and me and them just text. Which coach is on hot seat for next year? Here's mine. Jets, Miami, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Jags. Okay. Jets, Buffalo, Chicago, I agree with. Doug Peterson would have to just totally destroy the team, in my opinion, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Pittsburgh fires Tomlin at all. That's just not the way they've done things. I don't think Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat either. I mean, Miami was always hovering around 500. They went 11-6. I mean, they went to the playoffs last year, so I don't agree with that. But these are all teams that, if they really do bad, are in trouble. Brian Dable, Giants, number 1. McCarthy in Dallas, he's not even under contract for next year. Those would probably be my top 2. The Jets, Robert Saleh, they have to make the playoffs. McDermott, I think might even have to win a playoff game. Eberfluss, Chicago, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to throw something else out there because you heard me say it. I think Tennessee's going to have the number one pick. I think if Tennessee ends up being a 2-4 win team, which I think is very possible, I can see them moving on from Brian Callahan. I can see them being a one and done. We've seen it before. So, yeah, that's my number one. All right, guys, join me next Friday. Hit me up on social media. Don't forget to like it. If you haven't already, most of your regulars, I know most of you, but if you're new, hit that subscribe button. I'll see y'all next Friday where I do my 2024 NFC preview. See you guys next week.